allow the stream to start.
Should be starting now.
Okay, President Paoli, we are live.
Okay, I will call to order open session at 6:07, and I will share our vision and mission. Every student receive engaging and challenging learning experiences to reach their greatest potential and thrive in a diverse global society. And our mission is Fbusd delivers exceptional, engaging, equitable, and collaborative learning opportunities for all students. And I would also like to report that we will be going back into closed session at the end of the meeting. And we do have, Scott moved and Mary seconded to approve all the leave of absences except the probationary not fully credentialed teacher. It was a 5-0 vote. We also have a motion by Mary, seconded by Scott, a 5-0 vote for the certificated rescinded leave of absence. That was granted 4-0. And since we do have, actually, I will ask if there's approval of the agenda. So do we have anything to move or pull on the agenda? No. May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, seeing no objections, so moved. And before we get to the next item, which is public comment of non-agenda items, I will read our disclosures. So we have in-person folks this evening. Thank you for joining us. Individuals may address the board on agenda items on both the closed and regular session agenda during public comment and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the speaker form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting to Renee Holes, administrative assistant. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on an agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. A total of 20 minutes public comments per topic will be allowed. If you require translation services, please contact Renee at the district office 72 hours in advance or by telephone or email. The meeting is videoed and broadcasted on Fbusd YouTube channel. And we also have virtual public disclosures. So any members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. So since we have so many folks here in person, we will start with anyone that would like to make a public comment for non-agenda items.
Renee, do we have any members of the public?
Yes, we do. We have Drew Duncan and Michelle Hutchins who would like to speak on non-agenda item.
So Drew Duncan is our county board member representative. He represents our region on the county board from Casper to, I believe, to Westport. Yes. Are you Rockport too?
Yes, all the way to the end.
Okay. So Drew is our county board member, and this is his first time at our meeting. So welcome, Drew.
Thank you.
So our podium is right behind you if you'd like to, so that the public can hear you as well. Thank you.
It's much better. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. I wanted to introduce myself as well as give a little report on what the county board has been up to. I myself grew up here. I attended Mendocino, but I was often here for basketball games. This building I struggled to find, but the gym I would have no problem, and the tennis courts no problem as well. So I'm really happy to be serving on the county board, representing you guys. It's my first sort of stint into the world of boards, and it's been a lot of fun and very engaging so far. What I've handed out were little youth voter packets that at the board. Over in the county, we helped the League of Women Voters put together. There's a few buttons in them, some information on how to register to vote. You can register to vote in California starting at 16. You get pre-registered, and then when you turn 18, you're automatically registered, and you're able to go and vote. And I think now more than ever, it's pretty clear that voting is important, it's necessary, and so we want to do everything we can to help people get registered. Yeah. And so last meeting, we with the League of Women Voters, we put together about 2,000 of the packets. We're going to be handing them out to students, along with League of Women Voter people will go into the schools and give a little talk on the importance of voting and how you can get registered.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Do we have any other public comment on non-agenda items?
No, we do not.
And we have no
Virtual.
we have no emails at our board meeting
Okay.
email address.
Thank you. So we will move on to the patriotic exercise led by our student representative, Joe Erickson, to the right.
Thank you. I'm Joe Erickson, the student board representative, and for the patriotic exercise this week, I wanted to share that the past couple weeks I've been studying relentlessly for AP tests, U.S. history and English this year, and I haven't had a ton of free time, so I'd like to devote this patriotic exercise to the effort of students working for their futures and have us do the Pledge of Allegiance for a classic. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please stay as long as you'd like.
Thank you, Joe.
Feel free. Okay, our next item on the agenda are acknowledgments.
So at this time, donations and acknowledgments within the district will be shared. The board would like to acknowledge the following. The month of May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, National Mental Health Month, National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. And Fbusd has designated tomorrow, May 13th, to collectively honor all district employees. So tomorrow is our annual Fbusd Staff Appreciation Day, which includes our administrators, teachers, classified personnel, school nurses, bus drivers, office staff, nutrition services staff, custodial staff, technology support, special education, groundskeepers, and all others who work to contribute to the success of Fbusd students. Thank you to our team. There is no way any one of us could work without any person on that team. And I just want to really acknowledge the heartfelt work that everyone in the FBUS team has done for the sake of our children in this community. It has been nothing short of heroic, and it's been a crazy couple of years. Thank you. Thank you for coming back every day. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for loving our kids. The board also recognizes the following, that May 8th was Mother's Day, so rock on mamas. May 22nd is Harvey Milk Day, May 30th is Memorial Day, and May 31st is World No Tobacco Day. There are no donations to acknowledge at this time.
Okay. Any other acknowledgements from the board? Okay.
Mark, I was just going to do it on communication. You want me to do
Okay,
it now?
perfect. No,
Okay.
that's fine. Okay, we'll move on to communications, and I'll start with Trustee Babcock.
So the first thing is I want to take a moment. I received a call from a community member wanting to remind me that Mrs. Huber celebrated her 100th birthday last weekend, and she, I was a student of hers as well as a colleague.
And just really quickly, if you had Mrs. Huber, could you raise your hand?
I went on a trip, yeah.
And she's 100, and they were asking for cards. She wasn't up for any kind of in-person celebration, but so if you would like to send her a card. But I just wanted to acknowledge her service. I have no idea how many years she taught, but it was a lot.
She was in my mom's yearbook, Kathy.
She was in my mom's yearbook too. Mine was 50.
It was many years. But she taught a lot of students, and she was a Spanish teacher, for those of you that are don't know the name. But anyway, we just wanted to honor her service to our schools and our district and our students. So thank you, and happy birthday. And then Do you want to mention the email that we got? Or do you want me to do that too?
I can, if you
Okay,
have
go
other,
ahead.
yeah.
Nope.
Anyone else?
That's all I was
Right,
gonna say.
so we received, of course, pension relief call of action from CSBA, also inviting us to do the May Revise with California School Boards Association as CSBA. And so they have a webinar for the May Revise from the governor's budget. And then also CSBA wanted us to become book club members during the summer. And then we did receive an email from a local art author regarding school name change, and also attaching a 96-page thesis from 1969. Sacramento State was the student on destruction of Indians, destruction of Indians in the county of Mendocino. So that was all emailed to all of our board members. And I think that was all the communication that we received. And that moves us to public comment on agenda items. Do we have any public comment on agenda items?
We have no emails in our account for agenda item topics.
Wow.
And there are folks in the audience. Does anyone want to speak on public comment? And you're also welcome to speak on the topic when it on the agenda as it comes up. So seeing no public comment, we will move on to reports. So we have 8.1, Student Representative Report.
Thank you. I'll start with my report from Redwood Elementary. At Redwood, the open house is next Thursday, the 19th, from 5:30 to 6:30. The preschool students are going to tour campus and prepare for going to TK and kindergarten. And at Redwood, they're also very grateful to the Parents Club for showering them with acknowledgments and treats for Staff Appreciation Week. Transitional kindergarten and kindergarten registration are still open, so if you know someone or are unsure if you've registered, then pick up an application at the office at Redwood or online. For Dana Gray, May 17th is their Parents Club meeting. The Dana Gray open house is May 26th at 5 p.m. June 3rd is anti-tobacco and anti-vaping presentations for the 5th grade. A BMX bike show is at Dana Gray on June 6th at 10:30. And the 5th grade ice cream social is on June 6th at 2 p.m. For the middle school, they are finishing up their softball and soccer seasons. Student clubs are meeting weekly during lunch. ASB and leadership classes are planning for the last blast at the last day of school. The 8th grade art classes are getting ready for an exhibit at Headlands Coffee House, and each grade level is planning field trips and end-of-year events. The middle school open house is the 24th of this month, and the web leader group is recruiting and training next year's 8th grade leaders. And May 27th is the school dance in the quad at the middle school. For Fort Bragg High School, the 18th is academic awards night from 6 to 7 in the gym. The 19th is Link Crew May Day, which is welcoming new Link Crew leaders for next year. The May 20th is the Spring Fling Dance. The 24th is Scholarship Night, 6 to 7 in the gym. And June 1st is Senior Board Start. And 2nd is the Senior Banquet, lots of senior things. June 3rd is the Senior Trip. And then the 7th through 9th of June are the finals. And on the 10th is graduation, which is 5 p.m. at the Timberwolf Stadium. And lastly, we've got Noyo High School, where they are gearing up for their art exhibition week that starts on May 31st. There's a group of students that are going down to the Mendocino Art Center on Thursdays to learn and experience various art mediums from the artists there. And they are taking a group of students to Six Flags on May 20th. The trip was spearheaded by one of their students, and they're beginning to prepare for graduation on Wednesday, June 8th. That is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Joe. And I have to say, just a little feather in Joe's cap. Probably the most lovely part of my week is when I went into the Fort Bragg High School library this week, and there's Joe on the guitar singing just very lovely. And I'm thinking the radio's on. I'm like, is that Joe? It was lovely. And it was during no cell service time. It was fantastic. So you are incredibly talented. Thank you for doing that in the
Thank
library.
you.
It was lovely.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is 8.2, the DLAC report.
So we have Tina Krenoff, who is here. She is our EL coordinator for the district. And just on behalf of Tina and her hard work, I would like to acknowledge what she's done for all of us in the school system and really shining a light on our English learners and pushing us to make sure that they are never forgotten and really supporting teachers to help them do the good work that they're doing. So thank you, Tina.
Thank you so much, Becky, and thank you for supporting me in my endeavor. So there are two parts to our report tonight. The first one will be that Veronica Renteria will read the DLAC letter to the board, where we acknowledge progress that has been made and we take into account what parents of English learners in the district have told us that they would like to see for the future for our English learners. So Veronica, would you come up?
Great, thank you. And while she's coming to the podium, Joe, you really feel free to exit whenever you need to with AP.
I think I'll stay tonight. I finished all the.
Oh, great. Thank you. Welcome. Sorry to interrupt the report.
And just a plug for Veronica. This woman is a powerhouse. She has been at every DLAC and ELAC
Yes.
meeting. She really is a champion for children. So thank you for hanging in there and doing that good work and keeping us informed and communicated with. It's been an honor to watch you in action. So thank you for being here.
And a Fort Bragg High School grad.
Oh, even better. Go Wolves.
You took the words out of my mouth, Becky.
Oh,
That's
I'm
what
so
I was
sorry.
gonna say. Okay, so again, I'll just echo what Becky said. Veronica has been at every DLAC meeting, every ELAC meeting. She's the president of the Redwood ELAC and the president of our Fbusd DLAC, and this is the second year, and she always keeps us real. So, okay, go ahead.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Fort Bragg Unified. I'm so sorry. I'm so nervous.
Fine.
Fort Bragg Unified School District English Learner Advisory Committee. Dear school board members, in accordance with the state guidelines and the foundation of the District English Learner Advisory Committee, including advising the school board regarding the needs of English learners, ELS, we appreciate the opportunity to appear before you to share our recommendations for the 2022-2023 school year. Let us first thank all of you for continuing committed to the English learners of our district. We're especially pleased with the following. Fbusd created 2 bilingual family liaison positions. Fbusd provides the encourage of the use of tools, online communication between school, parents, and teachers, and Parent Square. The move to Parent Square with automatic translation feature has helped give parents a choice for mean communications. Fbusd continues to show a commitment to having bilingual aids to support our English learners in the classroom. Fbusd keeps parents constantly informed of current conditions and changes through COVID-19. Based on the comments we have received through the school year in presentations, parent surveys, and ELAC, DLAC meetings, we would like to present to the school board the following recommendations. Keep the 2 bilingual family liaison positions as they are. The work of Marta Lopez and Maricruz White has been extremely well received by parents and staff alike. In the future, they will expand their tasks to include parents' classes and information nights. There was an unusually large number of newcomers to the district this year. These students came with traumas and disrupted schooling, and they speak a little to no English. We therefore recommend that the high school continues the ELD classes and the middle school creates 2 sections of ELD. We recommend that Fbusd explores the possibility of creating an offer school after class for the newcomers for the purpose of teaching them basic English skills. We would like to see a better ongoing communication with parents regarding to students' progress. in reading, writing, and English language development. We recognize that the 21 and 22 year school was very difficult for teachers and parents alike, and sincerely hope that 2022 and 2023 school year will be conducted more frequently communication. We hope that the school district will resume providing an opportunity, COVID permitting, for 4th and 5th grade students to realize a field trip to the Ukiah campus of Mendocino College with the objective of encourage interest in college career and opportunities. Based on a parent request, we would like to see the district bring an outside parent presenters for the following topics: health and nutrition, bullying, parent and child communication. Again, we recognize that during the pandemic, it was not in anyone's best interest to have guest speakers and gatherings. Hopefully, Fbusd will be able to arrange for these types of events in the coming school year. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share our recommendations with you at this time. Thank you.
Great job.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you for being my rock this year. I'll see you again next year. Okay, it is scary. It's not like you guys are scary.
No offense taken.
All right, so thank you for the opportunity to appear before you tonight. Last year, I stood before you very optimistic. It had been 2 miserable years, and I was optimistic that this year we would be able to, first of all, be in person in school, have actual ELD and English language development in our classrooms, which would greatly help our English learners. And even though it has been, to me, an unexpectedly hard year, we have made much progress, and I'm happy to be here to report on that tonight. And I want to acknowledge that every district in California has the same struggle to make sure that our English learners learn to their full possibility, but we are all moving forward, and we're moving forward together, so that's good. So first, a little bit of data. At the beginning of the year, we had 357 English learners in our district. The current number after reclassification is 332. That's 20% of our school population right now. Redwood has 110 English learners, Dana Gray 104, middle school 75, and high school 36. And I want to say that the Dana Gray middle school and high school numbers are higher than we've ever seen them. And at least part of the reason is that the state, with the new LPAC assessments, the English Learner Proficiency Assessment for California, they set the bar very high. You have to have the highest score is a 4, and a student cannot be considered for reclassification unless they have achieved that score of 4, which is a higher bar than we had with the previous assessment, which was the CELT assessment. Our English learners in the 2021 school year was 313, so we have quite a bit more this year. It was 16% of our total population. In 2019, 2020, it was 294, 15%. So we have had a significant increase in English learners, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we reclassified this year 23 students. Last year we reclassified 34. The year before that we reclassified 25. So the difference is, it just depends on which students have a good day when they take the LPAC, basically, because that's the standard that we look at. We have the number of reclassified students in our district this year is 266. Teachers have to monitor those students, so they have to use our English learner platform called Elevation to give input on how students are progressing, even though they are not receiving English language development any longer. The year before that, we had 312, and the year before that, we had 353. So that number has gone down, which makes sense because our English learner population has gone up, and we are not reclassifying as many students. So let's take a look at some benchmark data. This year, we have used iReady as our benchmark K-8. And I just want to acknowledge, first of all, before I talk about these numbers, the hard work that the teachers have done with our English learners. It has been a monumental task because our English learners suffered probably the most during COVID when they were not able to be in school and use the English language and get feedback and talk to teachers and peers alike and develop their language skills. So teachers have worked very hard, and we see great progress on the iReady assessments, but the statistics are still stark. So at Redwood, at the beginning of the year, iReady, students at grade level of our English learners was 5%. I'm putting together all 3 grade levels. I'm doing that at every site because I don't want to take time to split up the grades. So 5%. Non-English learners were 16%. That's a difference of 11%. Students who were 2 or more grade level, not at Redwood, 2 grade levels below, of our English learners was 44%. And our non-English learners was 19%. Those are big numbers. The latest benchmark at Redwood, the latest iReady, is at grade level 23%. So we went from 5 to 23%. So thank you, Redwood. Good job. And 2 years below at Redwood is now 31%. So that's a great improvement. And non-English learners 11%. So progress. And we're focusing on progress. At Dana Gray, at grade level, beginning of the year was 5%. Non-English learners was 37%. That's a difference of 32%. And 2 years or more below was 67% among our English learners, and 32% for our non-English learners. That's a difference of 35%. The last benchmark at grade level was 12%, so it went from 5 to 12%. Great progress. And two or more years below for our English learners was 45%, so it went from 67 to 45. That's great progress. The middle school beginning of the year for our English learners at grade level was 4%. 2 or more years below, 93%. But the progress that was made at the middle school was at the latest iReady benchmark at grade level was 7%, and 2 or more years below was 86%. So there's work to be done, but thank you, middle school, for making progress and for working really hard. We had the way we delivered ELD this year was difficult at the middle school, and the middle school has made a great choice to move forward in a different way that I think will be great, highly successful. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that we had this year, and Veronica already mentioned, we had an unusually large influx of newcomers that came straight from Mexico. And those students came with disrupted schooling. Many of them had not been, middle high school students, Dana Gray students had not been in school for many, many years, if at all, because they were escaping violence in Mexico. And the teachers, because of the cartels, stopped coming to their villages to teach them. There weren't any teachers there. They have also experienced a lot of trauma. They've seen a lot of violence. They've fled their homes with only their clothes on their backs and not knowing what's happening to their family members. So this has been just a huge challenge for us to meet their needs. We had 12 newcomers at the beginning of the year, TK through 10th grade. We got 3 new students straight from Mexico this week. There's a total in our schools of 18 non-English speaking students, more than ever, and a majority of them at middle school and a high school level, and several of them are illiterate in both Spanish and English. So it presents to us the conundrum, where do you start? Where do you start? So we're working on that. In addition, we have not had enough bilingual aid time for all those students. It has been a struggle for every site to make sure that that bilingual aid is stretched as much as possible through different classes and different teachers and different times. And the schools have done the very best they can. They've done a wonderful job making sure that students get the time they need, but it's not enough. So in order to seek help with this year, I joined several groups and organizations. I reached out to other districts and collaboratives. And the reality is that there's no easy answer for a small district without resources. Big school districts can have a classroom just for newcomers, and they can have students of different grade levels, and they can address all of their needs as they present themselves. In a school district, that's much more difficult. We are continuing to research and gather resources from SCO, MCOE, CDE, etc. online. We are hoping that there may be a kudos class for newcomers next year. We are exploring that. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that we will have a teacher training / boot camp before the beginning of school next year, where I will deliver some ELD training. And I think our teachers have been heroic in addressing the needs and trying to teach their English learners the best they can without adequate training. So let's talk about progress and snapshots. ELD per site, Redwood and Dana Gray, every teacher teaches a small group of ELD every day. They use the benchmark advanced curriculum, and they have had professional development in who their English learners are, designated ELD, Elevation, which is our platform for monitoring English learners, and also professional learning in LPAC practice. Middle school humanities teachers taught in small group. Next year, though, there will be 2 ELD sections thanks to the middle school staff, which will free up the bilingual aid and meet the needs of non-English speakers and newcomers at that site. The high school created one ELD section for non-English speakers this year. It will continue next year, and it's been lifesaver for those students. In terms of LPAC, we're just finishing up this week, just a few absences, but I had many more trainers than I've had in the last couple of years because the pandemic is more or less over as we knew it. And so the testing has been really smooth, and I appreciate Redwood, Dana Gray, middle school and high school for accommodating us as we tested the students. Definite progress. Road to reclassification was reinstituted. That means that somebody in authority meets with English learners and talks to them about how important it is to perform well on the LPAC test. Laura did that at the middle school. Thank you so much, Laura. She met individually with each student and talked about where they were on the LPAC and where they wanted to be and why it was important. The counselors at the high school did the same, and the Redwood and Dana Gray teachers did the same and did a great job prepping their students and giving them LPAC practice. iReady will move on and will be expanding their Spanish-speaking portion, both assessments and lessons in Spanish, and that will be a great help to us. Elevation strategies, thanks to Becky, we were able to adopt this year an additional part of Elevation, which is called Elevation Strategies, which has actual strategies and lesson already made for teachers who want to use them to provide English language development for their students. It also includes modules for professional development for all teachers in regard to teaching ELD. And Becky approved that for DCEC, which will be a great incentive. And the very last thing I want to mention is our bilingual family liaison positions. Without Martha and Mary Cruz, I don't know what I would have done this year. It's a miracle to me. And everywhere I go, I hear parents, aides, teachers, principals tell me what a fantastic addition to our district these positions are. And thinking about all our newcomers, what would we have done with them if we hadn't had these positions? So thank you, the two of you, for everything that you're doing for our community. It's fabulous. And I also want to give a special thank you to Becky and say bye. See you later. I want to thank Becky for inviting me to be part of her superintendent blog. So I'm able to provide a little section in her blog that addresses specific things to English learners that might be of interest or use to the district teachers, and I'm really grateful for that. I think it'll make a difference. So next year, I'm hoping to update our EL master plan because the state of California has now instituted the English learner roadmap, which is based on assets rather than deficits. So we need to rewrite our EL master plan. We need to fine-tune targeted professional learning. I just cornered Kelly Smith outside and asked her if we could collaborate, and she graciously said we can talk about it. And we hope to be better prepared to meet the needs of newcomers as they will continue to come next year. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tina. That was an incredibly comprehensive report. Appreciate
Yep,
it.
thank you. So just, I just had one quick question, but I think that, did you say that you had, that iReady had a Spanish component part of the program? Okay.
It started this year introducing a few Spanish-speaking lessons. It did introduce the Spanish language assessment in iReady.
Great.
But they are greatly expanding the lessons for the coming year, so that will be really useful for us,
Absolutely.
kindergarten students and newcomers and students that are struggling. It'll be great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on the reports is the Bilingual Family Liaison Reports, 8.3.
So we have Martha Lopez with us and Maricruz White. And just a plug for Martha and Maricruz, everyone is singing their praises because in truth, you don't see the capes on their back. They've hung them up for tonight's report. In truth, I don't know what we would have done without them, to be very honest with you. And when I spoke to Martha earlier, I said, Martha, how did we do this in years past? And she said, Becky, the secretaries did it. We didn't do what we're doing now. And what an incredible blessing to get Maricruz White. Maricruz has been working with Migrant Ed and that program for the last several years.
3 years.
So Maricruz came in on the ground running, and I graciously call them the dynamic duo because they can complete each other's sentences. They can work with families seamlessly. I, of course, had all these grandiose ideas of how we were going to organize this, and Martha very graciously came to me and said, Becky, we need to do it differently. Okay. So they've organized it by family, where I wanted to organize it by school. It makes all the sense in the world so that our families are going to one person instead of having to go to 3 different people if you have kids in 3 different schools. To date, they are working with over 450 students and their families. It's been quite miraculous, to be honest with you. And I'll let them sing their praises. I am so overjoyed that these positions are with us. I am incredibly overjoyed and honored to work with 2 women with such a high caliber of integrity. They are also working with our families who are English speakers who need help. Martha will walk around and say, okay, I know you need help too, so come with me. And people don't know what to do with them because they just take control and get it done. So I will be quiet now. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart how much you have impacted Fort Bragg Unified, and it will be hard for me to say goodbye to the 2 of you. So good work. Good work.
Oh, we're gonna start crying before.
Nope, sorry. We're back.
Well, good evening, Superintendent Walker and school board members. Thank you for having us this evening. We are excited to be here with you tonight. And I want to say I'm so fortunate to work with Maricruz White, who brought her skills of previously working with the Migrant Ed program. All I can say, she's dedicated, compassionate. Oh, I'm gonna start crying. And easily makes connections with the families, which is not easy. It's not a job that is easy to do. Together, we serve 288 families and 466 students at all 5 Fbusd schools. We help parents enroll their children in Fbusd and assist them in familiarizing themselves with the school system. Some of the assistance includes creating an ARIS account, checking attendance, grades, set up Parent Square, email communication with teachers, counselors, and principals. We help them set up doctor's appointments for their children for immunizations, athletic clearance, yearly checkup, vision, and hearing. For students with IEPs or SSD, we assist with any follow-up appointments with doctors, counselors, therapists. We help parents connect with agencies in the community like Mendocino Coast Children's Fund, Police Department, Food Bank, Project Century, CV Star Center, and First 5. We help our students to understand their ARIS account, check their grades, senior project, tutoring resources, applying for school programs like Kudos, community resources, CV Star Center activities, and work permits. We help our staff by providing translations for IEPs, SSTs, teachers. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
we got lost
Go
there.
back.
Sorry.
Go back again. Keep going back. Keep one more.
One more.
It's not, oh, there we go.
There you go.
There you go. We help our staff by providing translations for IEPs, SSTs, teacher-parent conferences throughout the year, and contacting parents for diverse issues with their students. We remind and call parents, encourage them to attend DLACs and SARC meetings. Some days we visit all 5 schools in one day, and it is a lot. You will always see us on the go, going from one place to another. If you see us in our office, we're always on the phone with parents, answering questions, coordinating appointments, and responding to emails. This job is very rewarding, and we are grateful for having the opportunity to serve the families in our district. We hope we have made an impact this year. We are already planning and looking forward to the next school year. So thank you so much. And at the end of the slide presentation, we have some comments from some of the counselors, like Catherine and Tomas, what they're saying about what we've been doing, and they're grateful that and appreciative of our work. So we are very blessed to be working with all of them, with the staff, and with the parents, with the families. And we have at the end also some comments from, I'll give you time to read. And the last part, we have some comments from the parents, and I'm going to read it in Spanish and then in English. Todas las ayudas son importantes, los papás nos envolvemos en el trabajo y es un programa que nos ayuda a entender las calificaciones y ayuda a nuestros hijos. All the help is important. We, the parents, worry about work, and this program helps us understand grades, and it helps our children to do better. El programa es útil para comunicarnos con las escuelas y nos informan las juntas. The program is useful to be able to communicate with the school, and they inform us about the school meetings. Me gusta la ayuda que dan para podernos comunicar con los maestros. I like the help they provide us to communicate with the teachers. So thank you for the opportunity, for letting us help, for helping the families. We were fortunate to be able to do that. So.
And I just want to add that I love working with Marta also, and when I was working with Micronet, I wasn't too connected with the school district, but now working here, it feels really good to be working with that community where I grew up. So thank you.
And I just want to say that you forgot a really important part, and that was that Maricruz, you brought the Mexican consulate to the actual consular, what's it called? Mexican
Consulate.
Up to Fort Bragg to meet with us. That was amazing. Now, did she come?
Yeah.
So that was huge, because that consulate helped set up, well, you talk about it, you said it.
We had a meeting. We had a meeting with them because we have new families and they need an ID to open a bank account or for whatever they needed. And we had to talk to them, explain them the needs, because it's very hard to get an appointment. And to get an appointment, they have to go to San Francisco. And families don't have driver's license, they don't have cars, and we have to talk to them and convince them to come and give the service to the families here, which they usually do every year, but since the pandemic, they haven't been coming for like 2 years or 3 years. So I'm glad that they made the decision to come because they, saw the need for the families. Thank you.
Great job, ladies. Great job.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for a thorough report and for your service. So our next item on the agenda is the John Dietrich Center facility update. Superintendent Walker.
I know this part of the report, you're seeing bathroom scenes. For those of you who have been with us for a long time, our board meetings used to be at the John Dietrich Center. And so just to give everybody an update, the John Dietrich Center right now, the whole bottom floor is being leased, and I use air quotes there, by the Mendocino Coast Clinics. We are thrilled with this partnership. They are bringing community, family, medical resources into our students. So the goal is for Mendocino Coast Clinics to expand their services. They are open every Wednesday, and they actually provide medical services for students on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. The social worker that we are partnering with MCC is going to be housed in the Diedrich Center, and they're hoping to start those services 2 days a week. The plan, the grandiose plan, and I'm telling you this because I'm not going to be here, but really I hope the board can stay on track with this big plan. And the big plan, when we started this, has always been to provide 5 days of services, of medical services to the students in our community through the John Diedrich Center for kids birth to 18. And Lucretia Renteria and Jeremy Foley are both working to bring dental services in at least 2 days a week. So there are many things that are happening over there. And the reason I wanted to show you the pictures of the bathroom is because they are taking ownership of that building, and they wanted to provide renovations so that it felt like a cleaner, newer place. We are having discussions about the exterior of the Diedrich Center and how we can work together to somehow do a lease back so that we can get that building up and running again. There's probably, on a private scale, there might be $80,000 worth of renovations. If it's dirty money, meaning it's public money, then we have to go through compensatory wages, prevailing wage, and that's going to triple the price. So we're working to really provide some renovations, but good services for kids. And those of you who've been here long enough, the bathroom was always something that I don't even know how to describe it, and I won't do it in public, but it was unique. So they came in and they redid the bathrooms, and I walked in, and it was one of those awkward meetings. Come on, Becky, let's go look at the bathroom, okay? But it's really great. It's really quite lovely how they did all this, and it's still up to code so that the commercial kitchen is not in jeopardy. Thank you, Mary Macula. Yep. So that's what's going on in the Diedrich Center. Again, big plan is to offer more medical services to students. Mendocino Coast Children's Fund has moved into the side building, the side office on that bottom floor. They're leasing that through the Mendocino Coast Clinic so that they can provide family resources to all the families in our community. So we are seeing a nice, wonderful use of the John Diedrich Center on that bottom floor. We're seeing art that's being done by Flockworks. They're working with kids after school. We're still providing the supper program from the Teen Lounge after school. There's lots of great things happening right across the way where we weren't seeing that infusion of kids and families in that building. We're now seeing some really great community resources going through. And again, I'm just going to ask you to keep on with that vision. Keep on pressing Mendocino Coast Clinics for those medical services, because picture this, when we get Alt Ed over here, imagine how wonderful it's going to be to have that resource open from 8 to 5 every day, providing medical, dental, and we even talked about vision services. So please keep the vision. It is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to infuse life back into the Diedrich Center and provide some real services for our families that are just a step away from a school. It's really just walking across the street. So anyway, I'm excited about the Diedrich Center.
Great, thank you for the report. The next report is Dana Gray Elementary Science Fair.
So there was a wonderful science fair at Dana Gray, and I wanted to be able to just share the great work. Mr. Kale called me because we had a power outage and we couldn't have it on one day, so then it was changed to the next day, and I didn't have it on my calendar, so I'm running over to Dana Gray and I'm looking at these wonderful projects with ribbons, and I hope you're able to go through the board packet and look at the pictures. The kids did a great job. It was wonderful to see them there, and then of course the kids were next to their ribbons, and I got to talk to a couple of students about their projects. And they really took ownership of their project. This was not, mom and dad did it over here on the side and typed it and I didn't know what I was doing. They really took ownership for some intricate and great science experiments. It was an honor to walk through and see everyone who was recognized, and just kudos to the Dana Gray staff for really pushing that, and thank you for Mr. Kale for calling me because the date changed, so I was able to get there. So congratulations to the kids. I hope you were able to see some of those photos.
And I think we had a special meeting that night, and I remember driving home thinking, oh, the science fair. So I'm thankful for the pictures because those are very impressive for that age group. So the next item on the agenda, our benchmark data presentation. First up is Redwood Elementary, presented by Principal Lundy Erickson.
And just to give everyone an idea, when we say benchmark data, for those of you who are new, we look at our students' academic progress 3 times during the school year. We start at the very beginning of the year so that we can get an idea of where they're at. We take a first benchmark in October, November, a second benchmark again, an assessment in February, in January, February, or March, right in that window, and then another one, our third benchmark at the end of the year. So what you're seeing today is the Redwood benchmark data, and this is Lundy Erickson, who is our principal at Redwood Elementary, grades preschool through 2.
Thanks. Now I don't have to forget to introduce myself, which sometimes happens. Okay, before I begin, thank you for taking the time to read through all of this. I have to say how proud I am of our staff for the work that they're putting into this. The conversations that they're having about data are pretty fantastic. At this point in the year, they understand the system, thanks to Kelly's help, of what steps we're going to go through as we analyze. The overview, we're making progress. We are seeing progress from all of our grade levels in all of these different areas. And in some areas, it's slow. As I've talked to you guys before, we've had some challenges at Redwood. The transition for our youngest learners coming into the school setting, for some of them not having had any preschool experience or any kindergarten experience, trying to learn online, we were starting with some pretty major academic challenges. But for all of our teams, we are seeing the progress. I will overview that for the top 2 boxes, teachers were asked to look as their grade level team at what data shows a lot of growth and which data shows not as much growth, so that we can target that moving forward. So I've got kinder information for ELA and an action plan, thinking ahead based on what we know now. How can we launch into the fall so that when we begin in August, we can hit the ground running? We've got the data statements for math, as well as an action plan for math. I'm not going to speak too specifically about any of these slides, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them. We've got information for first grade, for ELA, as well as their action plan, math data statements, and an action plan, and then the same for second grade.
So really quickly, I'm going to do an introduction because I'm recognizing that the board members have not met Kelly Smith yet. So Kelly, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to have you come up. So we contract with Kelly Smith. Kelly is our instructional consultant, and I will say that she has really changed so much in Fort Bragg Unified. She is an amazing team player. Where we were 6 years ago is we were making decisions, but we weren't making data-informed decisions. And I know that our teaching staff, our administrative staff, we were always doing what's best for kids, but we didn't have the data necessarily to back it. We were using our CASP data, or our end of the year data, that autopsy data, to really make big decisions. And it doesn't give us the acuity for us to understand if what we were doing was working. So the first thing we did with Kelly was really talk about our professional development, and I'll go into that when I present the 2-year plan here very soon. But what's been important about this year has been the data analysis piece. That's what we really focused on this year. And the data analysis has coincided with the board meetings so that you are getting it in real time. So for instance, you didn't get this on board packet day, which for you is Friday, for the rest of the world is Monday. And the reason you didn't get it is because, Lundy, when did you get this data together?
We were working on the math data yesterday. Yeah. It's really fresh.
And one of the things that we were concerned about was that the data that the board was getting has typically been 2 or 3 weeks old. And 2 or 3 weeks for our youngest learners, for all of our learners, it's old data. So we wanted to make sure this year that you received information that was timely and current. So Kelly's been here. This data is what the teacher sat down and really did the deep dive to figure out, what does the data mean? Where do we need to go? How are we going to make this better? So I really want to just take my hat off to Kelly for your great work, to all of the teachers for taking ownership of what our kids are doing, and then taking that big next step of what's our action plan. So just little tidbits. So Kelly, if you wanted to say hi.
Can I address the board?
Yes.
My name's Kelly Smith, and I am so grateful to work in beautiful downtown Fort Bragg. I can't tell you what a invigorating place it's been for me. I'm sorry I have my mask on. I'm from another town, and I don't want to give anybody anything. You know how you come from another town. But I just feel like what the work that the schools are doing, and the middle and high school equally. In fact, the middle and high school day that we had about 2 weeks ago, at the end of the day, I said, oh my gosh, I wish the board were here to see you have these deep, rich, great conversations. And the exact same thing happens at Redwood and Dana Gray. So what teachers are talking about in that depth of looking at what kids can do and where they're not able to do those things. And then the other thing that's really cool with the elementary schools this year is they've been following a PLC model, professional learning community model, where then they take that data and make plans about what they're going to do about it like the next day. And then they come back the next week and say, did it work or not? And you know, the middle and high school are doing the same thing. So it's super exciting to watch data be something other than numbers that don't have meaning. And so that floats into how do we plan lessons and engagement and then literally teach to the standards that we want all kids to have great access to. So it's been a really good year. I'm so proud, so incredibly proud of the work that your schools are doing. And I have to tell you, I get around. So I've worked in Detroit and Philly and then little tiny districts and other places. And I can't think of a school district that I'm more proud of than Fort Bragg. So I really want to sing your praises and actually have other people come visit. And next year I'm really hopeful. I'm so sorry. Becky won't be here. But I'm super hopeful that you all do our instructional rounds and walk through classrooms and see exactly what we're trying to do and how rich it is when you get to see kids engaging in really good stuff.
And Trustee Duncan, I would invite you to participate in that. It's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
So, and I know that
we're working on it for next
Trustee
year.
Mattson and Trustee Schneider, you had just visited the middle school to look at some instructional rounds. So.
Yeah, no, we're working on making you a regional model where people come want to visit. So
That's
good.
very timely compliment to its staff appreciation. So that's wonderful to hear.
And I have to have one more thing. Your teachers are so open to the conversations and open to new ideas. And I haven't run into anybody that's like, oh, no, I don't want to play. You know, most people are like, yeah, let's go for it. I had a conversation with Tosa today that was really about how do we get farther and better down the road to serve our kids. And you can't hope for anything better than that. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lundy. Boy, it's just a fun day, isn't it? Thank you, Laura. So, any more from you, Lundy? Any questions for Lundy?
We did get the information, I think, so I didn't get to go through like what the goals are moving forward, but I did observe that at the elementary level, and if you compare it to high school, middle school, the like you spoke of the prior percentage of at grade level and then compared it to now, and that's I can appreciate that. It's substantial, and there's definitely, even if it's, I mean, there's a movement. And I don't know, I was just curious on at the higher level, I don't know if it's more about the goals, but they speak on increases as student achievement. They don't say this is where we were, because it's not really grade level, I guess, at that level. So I was just curious on how it's chosen to report out the success or the differences that way at the upper end.
So at the upper end, remember that we're departmentalized.
Right.
So there are different standards there for the different departments. So the goals, while it is to increase student achievement and increase academic progress, when you're looking at it from the different departments, they're looking at it from their standards-based curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's a little bit different.
Right.
Grade level is different at the upper grades because you could have an algebra class that has juniors and seniors and
Got it.
sophomores in it. So we don't talk about grade levels
Right.
at that point.
Right.
English can talk about grade levels. The hard part with a high school is that the 9th and 10th grade English standards are exactly the same.
Mm.
The 11th and 12th grade English standards are exactly the same. So it's a little different once we get to the upper grades
Right.
about looking at things from a grade level perspective. We look at it from a standards perspective.
Right.
Are they meeting the standard? At the elementary levels, we really hone in on grade level expectations and grade level target standards,
Mhm.
still standards based, but we're looking at it from a much more global place of are they meeting grade level standards?
Right. Well, and I think where it is that I'm unclear on how many have gone up in that increment. So with the reporting out for high school, middle school, I don't know if 50% are there at the standard, or if it's, I don't know if there's like something missing. So anyway, just an observation that,
I can help a little bit.
okay.
So for this last year, the middle and high school content areas created standards-based assessments that were paced according to what they just taught.
Mm.
So they wanted to know, I taught it, did they learn it? And, what am I going to do about that? But over the last year, they've decided that they would take some essential skills and test those same things 3 different times. So now they'll be able to, next year, we're just
Gotcha.
getting done with that, but next year they'll be able to know
A better comparison.
how many kids met that standard in round 1, round 2, and round 3.
Gotcha.
And this year, because it was, tied to finals, and we hadn't had these good conversations before we started launching into this year, it's kind of a work in progress, but I'm super excited because science launched it, and math, English, and history are working on doing that. And it's a little bit easier at the middle school because they have the iReady for the sort of core classes of English.
Right. That makes sense. Thank
Does that
you
make
for,
sense?
yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So I have a question, Ms. Erickson, if I may. Because we haven't really had a chance to look through this because it's so fresh. But what would you say is your biggest accomplishment of the past year? And then what would you say is your biggest challenge for next year?
Ooh, good questions. Our biggest challenge has been helping kids reacclimate to being in a structured environment, shall we say. As I spoke about earlier in the year at this meeting, we had some kids who were really struggling just to follow adult instructions. So spending time on our social emotional learning has been essential, and the strides that we've made, the implementation that we've done at our site with PBIS, restorative practices, has made a huge difference. That has made all of the academic learning possible. So even though in some areas the growth appears small, I'm really proud of that. I don't know that the thing that I'm most proud of is going to fall into an academic category. I am really proud of that growth. Given the extraordinary challenges that we've faced, our staff has stood together. And it still feels good to be at Redwood, even when stuff is going down. And I think that's a huge achievement. We've got baby chicks hatching in our kindergarten classrooms right now, and we're all taking turns going to visit, office staff included. We find ways to lift each other up and to have that feeling as a child's first school experience helps them love coming to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Next is Dana Gray Elementary, presented by Principal Rick Kale.
One of the things they tell you in presentation school is never follow Kelly Smith.
You're just
Wait,
right up.
how do I
Just keep going. Roll.
Click.
You can either roll
click?
it or
Roll
click.
it? Okay. Wait, am I going
Go
the
the
wrong
other
way?
way.
Go the other way.
There you go.
So my presentation is a lot shorter, but I just want to point out, and it's going to be very repetitive of where we, whoop, there we go, of where we were before. We have not yet done the ELA part of this analysis, and we will do it. But we, interestingly enough, the time that we were going to cover that space, we had the CAST test, and we realized that we hadn't done that in a year and a half. And we had to do some real serious learning about the logistics of how to implement the CASP, which is going very well, by the way. By the way, we're right in the middle of it. One of the things I want to point out to you, if I can, is kind of how to read this, because, you know, John Hattie talks about visible learning and visible thinking. This is literally visible thinking. Like, this is, you can read these narratives and you can see what the teachers are thinking about, which are the standards, sorry if I'm going away from the mic, which are the standards that they think are the most important, and then talking about, reflecting on the successes and the challenges related to those standards. And it literally, like if you read it, we worked really hard to improve our performance in the area of, you know, and it really lets you into the thinking of each of the teachers as they move forward. The other part that's really interesting about this is that it not only gives us a plan for next year and a focus for next year. That's these action steps for next year and the strategies for next year. I love it that it still talks about this year. This year is not done, and there's still learning that is going to happen, and strategies that can be implemented this year. So it talks about, you know, they reflect on the previous action plan, on the winter action plan, and then they talk about what are the action plan that we can implement right now to continue learning in this year, and then what are those steps that and bigger projects that we're going to think about next year. So I mean, just some ideas about how to read it and how the amazing deep data conversations that are happening amongst these teachers. Like, how wonderful is that? And to create these narratives, it would be much better if we could have like a microphone or something, you know, literally go the back and forth, the sway of it, you know, going back and forth as they do it. The process is that they have it projected just like this. So they're agreeing on the language as they're producing it for the board, and the proper way to reflect the ideas that they're developing, if that makes sense. So it really is that kind of visible learning as well as data analysis that you get to see where they're at. So third grade, you can see, and it follows, fourth grade follows the same process of what were the standards that we wanted to focus on, successes and challenges. Whoops, I went too fast. Oh, no, I didn't. No, I did. And then what we're going to do right now, what activities we're going to implement right now, and what are the ones that are going to be the big ones starting in the next school year. And then fifth is the same way, and they have the same kind of standards for this time and the beginning of next school year. It's really effective. Like, it's what we need to do. So we aren't just collectors of data. We're using that data in real time right now. We made this yesterday. So. And they're beginning to implement it today. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
So can I ask you the same question?
I knew you were gonna. What was interesting, and let me find it in here. It was interesting. Here. It was this. We had to slow down our instruction and pacing. So you talk about challenges. We had to slow down our instruction and pacing calendar because so many of us were out with COVID, as well as many of our students. Even after returning from COVID leave, we were still so COVID exhausted that we had to slow down our pacing to regain academic stamina. And I think that's so interesting. Like, wow, that's right where they're at. That wave of COVID that hit us in the middle was a massive challenge for us. As I hope to show you in the site plan, the success is we have massive growth. We're doing really, really well. So the teachers are just amazing.
Great. Thank you. Yes. I mean, I think this is a report for us, but it's also for the public, but it really is for the students. And this is showing that, and teachers, just to help them with their job and have it be consistent so you can compare. This is really, I know it's a lot of work and having to get everyone to collaborate, but it really does show and honor your work, because it's showing that there are increases, even if they're subtle. That's still success because you haven't given up on the kids, and they'll have what they need to get on in the world because you're committed to them. So I really appreciate everyone's efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Kale.
And we have Alternative Ed Campus by Principal Connie Belli.
And you know, Mr. Kale, I didn't get to thank you for the great work that you've been doing this year, so thank you for keeping this, for
Keep on scrolling.
keeping us going.
You're after
What am I doing?
You're scrolling.
Yeah, I am scrolling. I'm scrolling. Where am I scrolling? Oh, it doesn't go any further? Oh.
Oh, maybe you're at the beginning.
Huh. See, it is not my fault this time.
Mr. Kale went so fast. The computer. You know what? You're always at the end, so maybe I put you at the beginning.
That's so nice of you. Yeah. Or maybe you did. Now that would be.
It's hard to know.
It is hard to know with us.
No, that's not you.
Yeah, no, that's not
No, that's a
me.
different one.
Mine looks different. That's not that color.
I swear.
We have it
It's on
here in
page
our-
24. Yeah, 20, I don't know, 24
Huh.
or 23.
Can you go to the PDF?
I can.
No. I'm
It's
sorry, I don't mean to
Too
laugh,
many,
but it's pretty funny.
8 it's 8.6.
I'm so sorry. I know I had it queued up once.
If you go to 8.6 on the agenda.
God, I don't feel so bad.
A lot of windows open.
No?
You talk, I'll fix it.
I guess I'll just, yes, talk. And I'm Connie Belli, which you just heard. We, this year, we're, for most of you know, we're in big picture learning. And so we decided that this was a time that we could start fresh with data. Usually we have data that doesn't make any sense. You know, it's just, we don't have benchmarks. But this year we started with the help of our BPL coach looking at data that made sense to us and looking at data that would make sense year after year, since this is sort of a fresh start, so we can go, you know, compare, start with this as our baseline and then go, oh, look, there it is. Are you going to do that for me, or do I have to do it?
Would you like me to stand next to you and do that?
Could you stand next to me? Yeah, to make me feel a little bit. Or Gary could, you know, whatever. So we decided to, the things that we think we should be tracking.
Roll it towards me.
Roll it towards me.
Roll it towards you. You got it.
Okay. Yeah? No?
Roll it.
I am,
Roll the
oh,
wheel.
roll it. No, I am rolling it.
No, roll the wheel on top.
I am.
You are.
I am rolling the wheel. This is hilarious. Sorry. It is.
We always have fun here in Fort Bragg Unified, and hope
a
you're
crazy-
enjoying this
it-
at home.
Crazy mouse.
Where's my-
Mouse in the middle and roll your wheel.
All right.
What's your baby track?
There. What we oh, now I have to be. I'm too short for this.
You can bend the.
Exactly the right size.
Yes, I know.
Fun size.
So what we talked about, what we should be tracking is school culture, which we took from attendance, the Healthy Kids Survey, looked at parental engagement, discipline, and then events that we've had this year. And we also talked about post-secondary readiness, which is our internships, which are extremely important for part of big picture, certification and graduation rates. Now, those three things will come, probably look at those more next year. We are hoping to get to have kids do certifications and get more internships. That was a big deal at our WASC, was getting our kids out into the community. So I'm going to turn my little paper right towards me. Oh, God. See what I've done? Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh. I don't have any control. So these are all the things we're going to look at. We're going to look at attendance, like I said, all these various things. So the first thing up is attendance. And so what we looked at, we had two data sets that were of interest. The year-to-year data for Alt Ed, which is not necessarily the same group of students. And then the impact on attendance of moving to Alt Ed, which was something that we had been talking about that made more sense to us, was to take the group of kids that this year moved from the high school to Alt Ed to track their attendance and see if it was better once they came to us. And that made more sense to us. So the kids that came over, there were only 17 kids at the time that we tracked. And they spent 84 days at the high school and 67 days with us. That's the kind of the background. So during the school year of 18-19, so this is year-to-year data, the average attendance was 60%. So it's gone up this year, as of April, to 72%. So that's huge for us, and that makes more sense to us. That's, you know, and that was last year before the pandemic. And then the impact of moving over from a comprehensive high school, the average attendance while there was 61%, and once they got to us, it was 72%. So that's a huge, huge increase for our students. That makes us feel really like we're doing the right things, or that it's a better fit for them. That's what it is. And so well, I have to say, Gary did this, which is, I thank him profusely, Gary Lewis. But anyway, this is a student spotlight. So this student started with just being interested in computers, and part of big picture learning is learning by doing, learning by making, you know, through your interests. So he's now progressed on to basic robotics coding. He's moved into designing components on a CAD software, and CAD is computer assistant drafting, right? Something like that. Anyway, he built the car that's in the middle. He built the whole thing from a 3D printer and from his components that he had. And then the last thing is something he's building for a game, whatever it is. It's something he's building, he's coding, he's looking things up. He's really, really amazing. So there's our guy there. So then we looked at the California Healthy Kids Survey, and we were really looking at school engagement and supports. So I'd like you guys to look at, and I don't have to go through everything, but we looked at things like school connectedness, academic motivation, you know, is school really boring? These are all items that are in the Healthy Kids Survey. And so the data for us from 1920 and then 21-22, in almost every category, we went up where we needed to go up by double digits, and then in school safety and cyberbullying, our kids, it's gone up from 50% to 62%. They feel safe. Experiencing harassment went from 31 down to 15. Mean rumors or lies spread about you, you know, in 1920 it was 25%, and now it was only 15%. And then being afraid of being beaten up went from 23% to 8%. And so we had, which is really interesting for us, caring adult relationships went down, which we're really strong in, but that does tell us that we need to improve that, if that's what we're saying. And then there's some statistics there for the other schools, just to show that we are increasing what we're doing, and kids are feeling very engaged by being at our site. And then discipline. So disciplines can be a really subjective thing for many things. So we looked at the total number of disciplinary actions, which is referrals, suspensions, expulsions, and students who had at least one formal disciplinary action this year at any school, and to compare the impact of switching schools on the discipline action. So it was 11 kids that we compared. We tried to compare the same amount of time. Also for this cohort, their attendance increased by 15% when they got to us. Now this isn't an exact science, obviously, because it is somewhat subjective, but on a whole, discipline actions decreased when they got to our site by 58%. Some of that, I know we've been doing restorative practices for much longer than the other schools, and so that helps us immensely. But it was nice to see it going down for our site especially. And this young man is about to graduate, actually, and he is amazing, and he wants to be a diesel mechanic and a truck driver. So he has a internship at where his dad works at a local logging company, and he was going there 2 days a week, doing his schooling from there, and he rebuilt an engine for a race car for one of the owners. Had to redo the whole thing, and he didn't know a lot about doing that, and he read the manuals. He got to work with his dad. He learned so much from it, and for his exhibition coming up, he's going to bring the engine in and talk about what he did with it. He believes that he may be able to be hired by the same company when he's graduating. So parental engagement, we have had a hard time in the past getting parents involved in anything at our schools. Tough to have them get a site plan. There's lots of reasons why they can't do it. So we this year looked at ways we could assess it for our kids. And so at the end of every trimester, our students have to do what are called exhibitions, and that's exhibitions of their learning. And so we wanted to see the percentage of exhibitions that had at least one parent, family member present, percentage of families attending open houses, the Healthy Kids Survey score for parental engagement, and percentage of families contacted by and contacting advisors. And so what we found is 57.5% of student exhibitions had at least one family member present, which is amazing for our kids. And they were really thrilled to have their parents there. 16% attended the fall open house, so that's an area we need to increase information about and get it out to the parents to have more participation in our open houses. And in the survey, 56% of students feel the school promotes parental involvement. So that's huge for us. Mm-hmm. And then, we are going to be tracking the percentage of students with internships. That'll probably be coming this next year. And total hours spent working at internships. We're hoping to expand the number of internships we have kids going to next year. Right now we had, five or six this year. But we are hoping for, like I said, better next year. And then I wanted to show you some events that we've had. So we've been playing soccer and flag football against the Coast Guard. And we're doing that. We're having a softball game at the end of the year. So there's pictures of our kids against the Coast Guard. We have our students went to the Coast Guard and got a tour of the Coast Guard, the boat. We have students that are working in the food forest. That young lady in the purple sweatshirt is at an internship there. She goes twice a week to the food forest and is learning about planting and food, and she loves it, and they love her. They think she's amazing. At the bottom in the basketball shot, we played against another big picture school, South Valley in Ukiah, and I'd like to say we won the game because we've been having a little bit of a losing streak before that. In the top right corner is we also had a big gathering of big picture Northern California schools. And so those are some of the kids that attended. We had games, and we had different activities for the kids to play, and then we had a big barbecue. And then the one in the left corner is the kids went, I'm not sure if that's the Botanical Gardens. Do you know? Or is it? Oh, it's a pygmy forest. They took a hike and a walk to look at nature through the pygmy forest with our Native American Alliance. So that's some of the good stuff at Altet. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Great job. Yep. So again, kind of biggest challenge for next year, kind of what you see ahead of you, as much as you can in your crystal ball.
Probably the biggest challenge is just getting more kids out in internships and getting our story out and what we're about. I don't think enough people know what big picture learning is, and we are working on ways to get that out into the public and to to foster internships, but also just so people know what we're doing and what we're about now. I think the biggest accomplishment not only is how we as a staff have worked so hard together to make this happen, but that it's happening. Mm-hmm. And that we have more parents coming, we have kids engaged in their learning, they're learning amazing things, and they're here, and they're not leaving school, they're not ditching, they're not cutting, they're not, all the things that we've had problems with. They are engaged, and you can see the different things they get to do. So that to me is that we're actually doing it is huge.
Great, excellent work. And I did get to visit for an exhibition, and I loved it, every bit of it. It was full of surprises, and
yes,
but
it was.
Great kids. I just really, and it's worth every minute to see it and see how they support each other and how witty they are.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
I was up there.
Thank you, Gary. Also, good job to both of you.
I was going to say, I was up there the other day and was so impressed with the kids that were working with Gary, and they're making big plans for the mill site. I wish they were in charge of the mill site, but they had this big topographical map, and they're cutting it out, and they've got plans for businesses they're bringing in, housing, and they were all so into it. And you ask them what they're doing, and they're, it was great. It was great to see kids again. It was great to see them so engaged and enjoying what they were doing.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
This is a big student-centered board meeting.
It is. So yeah, we're doing well. So 8.7 is superintendent reports. We'll start with the Tosa report for 2021-22.
So TOSA stands for Teacher on Special Assignment. And our two teachers on special assignment this year from Redwood, we have Miss Leanne Burkwall, and she's been working with Kelly Smith and our teachers at Redwood to help with our professional development, our student engagement, our instructional rounds. And then our other instructional coach at Dana Gray is Janice Severco. This report was given to you today, so it was fresh, hot off the presses. I don't know if you want me to read it aloud or if you've read it. Basically, they give us the nuts and bolts of what they've done. They've been providing strategies for engaging diverse learners using research-based instructional strategies. They've been developing strategies for analyzing standards and creating lessons to address the specificity of the language and content standards. So I have to say, when we started this endeavor in Fort Bragg Unified on having a teacher on special assignment to be an instructional coach. It has been a really great road, and I know Sarah McGee is in the house. Sarah was one of our initial coaches, and she and Angie Daniels started this journey together, and they were really encouraging us as a district to make sure that the TOSAs rotate back into the classroom so that they still were able to have their teaching legs intact. And I have to tell you, I was not super supportive of that. And that was because I was selfish. I really wanted Angie and Sarah to continue on. I will say that having that switch and having them work with Kelly Smith has been monumentally profound, because what they had said to me was, Becky, you want to spread this wealth. You want to make sure that more people are doing this, and it's working. So I will say that I wanted the TOSAs to give you a little of a report so that you could see what they are working on and how they are directly impacting what our teachers are doing in the classroom working with kids. So do you have any questions?
I was just going to say it's great how they are basically liaisons between Kelly Smith and the staff, and making sure there's that continuity of that program, which was great. I just saw Leanne at Redwood the other day, and she was like, we were right in the middle of our meeting with Kelly, and we all lost the internet. So, but yeah, they sound like they meet pretty often, and that's great.
And what I appreciate about Kelly, she's been doing this gradual release with our TOSAs. Train, pull away, train, so that the teachers can go in and do that hard work with their colleagues. So it's been a good year. So thank you to Leanne Burkwall and Janice Severico for their hard work.
And the TOSA support's only in 2 schools?
Correct. So right now we're focusing on Redwood and Dana Gray. There has been a request always for more. The difficulty with the middle school and high school is, how do you address it for all the content standards? If we focus on engagement, we can do that. Money is starting to get a little tight. So if we devote dollars there, we just have to shift it from somewhere else. So for right now, I think the focus as we have it in the district, to have the TOSAs primarily focused on Redwood and Dana Gray, is a good move on our part as a district. And the reason for that is we discovered early that we needed to hit our younger grades earlier better because of our reading scores. And so that's how this came about. And our math scores weren't much better, without saying it. I mean, they're laughing. Thank you for smiling. I'm not trying to be rude. We have some work to do. And so I think the focus at the grade levels is a big deal, especially on the heels of COVID and not having kids in. We've seen those gaps widen, and having the coach there with our teachers is monumentally huge, especially because the staffing shortage is profound. So when we're pulling in new teachers off the street, Becky Walker goes every summer. Who has a degree? Oh, you're back. You're back from college. Come and work for us. It's been a huge support.
Right. Well, and it also looks like they were helpful, unfortunately, with the independent study. I mean, they were really leaned on for COVID reasons, going back in the classroom potentially. And the only question I had was the class creator. Is that something that's new, or you've been using that to do classroom formation placement?
So that was new, Mr. Kale. When did we get last year? So we got that last year to really take away that opinion.
Okay, gotcha. And it's probably much more less time consuming than the other process. Yes, because I was thinking about it and thinking that's quite the.
Well, if you ever watched it at Redwood, there were cards.
Yes, I've heard about it.
It looked like a big card game.
Don't knock over the table.
Yeah, don't touch the table.
Okay, thank you.
Shall we move on?
Yes, district school library 3-year development plans is next.
So this is exciting. We have been very fortunate to have Renee Holes accept other duties as assigned. And Renee actually has some extensive background in library science. So she's been working with our senior library assistants and the principals to go through our collections. And what you see here before you is where our library collections were and how outdated so many of our books were. And Dana Gray is actually in the worst shape, so we need to devote a little bit more to them. So we have in front of you a 3-year plan. from our LCAP. We've devoted $30,000 in our LCAP for this 3-year cycle. So $30,000 for this year, $30,000 for next year, $30,000 for the year after. And it's really to improve the reading collections at all of our schools. They are outdated. When you look at the number of books that were more than 25 years old, they become irrelevant for our students. One of the things that we also noticed was that certain collections were really low, and then looking for collections that our students could see themselves. Culturally relevant text, culturally relevant fiction and nonfiction. So this is a really comprehensive list. Renee used Follett, and I don't know if you want to add anything. And then the Follett does an analysis for you, tells you what books, and you can actually order through Follett. So it's not as if we have to do all this work ourselves. So I'm really appreciative of Renee and her work with this, and feeling incredibly fortunate that we have her as a resource, and that our libraries are going to get the needed boost that they need. It was interesting seeing some of the books that were weaned out of the collection. Very interesting. I think the oldest book we found was from 1946.
Yes. There are older books, but they're of a type where the age is not as important as the content. You know, classic literature doesn't age as long as the book itself is still relevant. So,
and it's interesting, you pull these books out, and what do we do as teachers? We hoard, because that's what we do. Oh, don't throw that away, don't throw it away. We're like, no, we really don't want this book in your library. But it's interesting, because it's so hard for us as educators to let go. And I'm telling you, as I'm trying to pack up my house, I hoard as well. And it's hard to let some of that go. So the good news is that we're doing a nice, fresh clean of our libraries and really trying to infuse so many more current books for our kids. So I'm thrilled, but we wanted to give you a highlight so you knew what was going on.
So is there a discard pile somewhere that you have in hallways, or how is that? That'll end up being on the agenda later?
There will be. So normally, and I can speak to that a little bit, the normal procedure is to pull out materials and decide whether they are still accurate in some way, but aged to a point where they can no longer circulate. And as long as materials are still usable for teachers, then they're offered up to the teachers first for their classrooms. Material that is out of date and completely inaccurate, nonfiction, those items are discarded and marked as discard, so that students and staff both know that it's not this is not a book you want to rely on for a report or for accurate information. So yeah, the books get offered to teachers, then they get offered to students for free to take home. I know Kelly Sutton at Redwood she has the largest weeding prospect in front of her. And I know she's working on that right now so that she can actually have enough surplus books to possibly get them in student hands before they leave for summer. So
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's great.
Do we know when the last time, have we ever done this before? Last time?
Our library assistants have been really good about taking parts of the site discretionary money to purchase some current books, but we're talking at a level of maybe $500 or $600 or $1,000 a year. We've never devoted this kind of money to our library collections. And Mr. Kale and I are actually in conversations with Wendy Boyce about what we can do to try and help that collection a little bit more, because it's such an integral age for reading. And the Dana Gray collection, I think, probably lost the most books.
Yeah, they started with the lowest amount, and books per student, I think, I don't have the thing open in front of me, but I think they're at 16 per student, and the recommended number is 28 to 1 for students. But the content supports that age group collection should be providing is one of the largest. Ages grades 3 through 5 really are still very dependent on library books to help them understand, and they're just starting to transition into using databases and online resources. So that's a really critical library collection that needs to really transition them into nonfiction and informational text, because that's the kind of testing they're going to see, and that's the kind of writing that you want to see from that age group too. So yeah, Mr. Kale needs to rehab the library before he can simply keep it curated but to answer your question, the last time there was really money funding libraries was during the block grant period. And that was a good, 15 years ago or even longer, when libraries had their own budget from the state and federal, and that ended a long time ago. So
And it was not sufficient.
and it wasn't. It was better than nothing, but it was not enough to keep libraries current. So
Great. Thank you. The next item is the leveled literacy intervention.
So this is exciting. We have two wonderful teachers with us today. We have Sarah McGee and Margaret Normoyle from Dana Gray. They are our reading intervention teachers. I think I'm most excited about this report, to be quite honest with you. Not that the others weren't thrilling. So we purchased the LLI program, and I will say this is hands down one of the silver linings of COVID, because we looked at this program 6 years ago and we couldn't afford it. And in fact, when Carolyn Carini and Joanne Farrell came to me and said, Becky, this is what we want to do, and we looked at the price analysis, we really could not afford it. Just to get it off the ground, it was a little over $500,000 with what we needed to do. We didn't have the money. We just simply did not have $500,000 to do this. So then COVID comes and we are given learning loss mitigation money. And so Carolyn comes back to me and says, okay, let's look at this again. And I'm scratching my head and Wendy's scratching her head and we're looking at the program. The research behind it was pretty significant. So as we dug deeper and deeper into it, Carolyn kept coming back saying, you need to look at this, you need to look at this. So we jumped in. And if it wasn't for those learning loss mitigation funds, we would not have this program, because I think to date, with everything that we've spent on LLI, I think we're nearing $1 million. Does that sound about right? Wendy? 3/4?
No, I don't know.
Okay, anyway, I know it's more than $750,000 because there's a lot, So
does that would include the libraries, which, we have our school libraries, which is wonderful that we're improving, but a resource that we needed at Dana Gray and at the other sites was that our classroom libraries were created by teachers, donations using our scholastic points, and new teachers coming in would be left with some discarded books. And like you said, grade 3 through 5, it's really important to have them have immediate access to books. And so a good portion, I believe, of the investment in LLI was to stock our libraries from kindergarten through 8th grade. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. With these really current, relevant, leveled text that are, they're trade books. It's not like leveled readers that were written for a program. They're wonderful. And so that was a big portion of it that helps the students who would qualify for the intervention program, but all students that are in the classrooms.
Yes.
But in addition, there was the intensive intervention program, which was part of it. And so this is the first year of implementation. LLI stands for Leveled Literacy Intervention. And we have 2 teachers at Redwood Elementary and 2 teachers at Dana Gray for the elementary portion of LLI. I believe our resource teachers are also using LLI materials as one resource to them.
And we also have one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we have Cassandra Robbers at the middle school who's implementing LLI with the students there. I'm at Dana Gray, and Margaret Normoyle is my counterpart there. Jean Whipple and Kim Myrtle are at Redwood, and they couldn't make it here tonight, but I do have notes from them to kind of share with you. So LLI is delivered in 30 to 45-minute small group lessons. It depends on which level the students are at. Once they get into higher levels, it's recommended to have a 45-minute block. And they're in small groups. So, I'm gonna go to the first one. So we have some data here. What did she say?
Roll towards you.
Scroll towards me.
And make sure you can see your mouse.
Got it.
That's
Oh my gosh. Am I have another one? Give it a shot. Yeah, you do. Oh, there it is, there it is.
Okay. Oh. And then turn the wheel towards me.
Okay.
I don't know why it's finicky.
We got it. So we'll start, we have some data from our 1st through 5th grade students here. And we start off with the 1st grade students. And what we're looking at on these charts are their Fontes and Pinnell leveled reading scores, which are, you're familiar with the ORR assessment. So thinking of in terms of the ORR assessment and
Just a second, sir.
Yeah.
ORR is oral reading record.
Yeah, and it's one of the universal assessments that all of the students in our elementary schools are given. So every student receives, or their homeroom teacher delivers the assessment with them so that we know where everyone is and so we can see who might need more intensive instruction. So, and the grade level expectations are in the little key there at the bottom. So you'll see this is our 1st grade, current 1st graders, and they were coming in, and when you see at a level AA, that's pre-reading. So it would be pre-A. The A text was too challenging. So when we see progress from there, know that there were a lot of alphabetic skills and foundational skills, concepts of print, that needed to be backfilled before they were able to be in the A level to start moving up to the other ones. And so there are some sample books that we're passing down. Yep.
This is A.
And so you can so it gives you some context of what we mean when we say an A book or a G book and how the text complexity kind of goes through. Okay, so for 1st grade, we do see that we had some progress. It's good to note that a typical, for kindergarten, for all the grades except for 1st, the expectation is that students will go up 3 levels per year. And then 1st grade is 6 levels. So that chunk of reading, whenever it occurs, that is the 1st grade year, is significant. And it's a real breakthrough from sight words, memorization, to reading. And it's just really wonderful. And Margaret and I have experienced that with many 3rd graders this year. And it's just been tremendous. So, and we see that our 1st grade is on their way. And if we go to the next one, here's our current 2nd grade. And you'll notice how that first column looks very similar to the 1st grade. And we were looking at how 2nd grade, maybe one of the most impacted, the current 2nd grade, maybe the most impacted in terms of reading as far as because of the pandemic. So these students also, many of them came in needing to backfill some alphabetic and foundational skills. And they've made progress, and now I think about them coming up to Dana Gray, and I feel like we're ready to take them on and see what we can do, see the progress that we made with students starting in a similar place this year, and know where they are now, and feel really hopeful about what this says. Another good point about what we look at Redwood is if we go back, so this is where they're ending, and it could be more growth from now, but this is the beginning. Think of this as a beginning 2nd grade crew going up next year, and how much higher that is to where this group started, and just think about the long-term progression of those students. It's
exciting.
Yeah, it's
It
exciting.
is exciting, yeah.
Okay, and then here we have the iReady data for just those students who were included in intervention. And the iReady data, it's shows some progress, but I feel like what we've been seeing is the first progress that we see as teachers are on these smaller assessments. Like we have phonics assessments that we do that are more specific, and then the oral reading record, we start to see it then, and I feel like in many cases the iReady is the last one to show their skills. And there could be various reasons for that. It's computer-based. The oral reading record, they're reading a book, which has so much more interaction with it, and they're having a conversation with their teacher about what they understand about the book. And the iReady assessment is more singular, they're just on their own to interact with this text and then show that they understand it. And so, but it seems like it does demonstrate their independence once they respond to those questions correctly. Okay, any questions about Redwood so far?
I just noted that there were maybe a couple of students that didn't move at all.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering if it was just due to attendance or if there really is a learning disability.
It's possible. I don't know about
right,
the
specific,
of
but
all of
generally, right.
Yeah, I think attendance was definitely something that we struggled with, and because they are leveled groups and having them at the right place is important. That long absent or long stretches of students being absent 2 weeks, a week, which was happening. I mean, January was just really, really rough. So that happens, they come back, the other 2 students in their group made progress, they're not there anymore, and it was a really, scheduling became tricky, and keeping the flow of things. So it was definitely a challenge. And we have some students that have missed a lot of days this year.
Yeah, so it counted for that.
So just a couple general questions about, like, which students get chosen for this? Do all students go through it? And then
no.
What
So,
determines
right.
Yeah.
So students who we look at 3 data points. We look at their oral reading record assessment. We look at their iReady score, and then we look at teacher recommendation. So if a teacher can come to us with a concern, and then we'll look at the data and see if they would qualify. And so we have been filling our capacity of having the four of us, but typically for intervention we look at students who are 2 years below grade level or more.
Mm-hmm.
And then what determines an exit date?
Right, so we've been working on that. I mean, grade level, showing that you're approaching grade level would be when we would exit a student typically. And that is what we're still dialing in is which assessments we look at for that, so that we have or is it all 3 or where do we go? So it's a team decision. We meet with the homeroom teacher and discuss whether we think that they can be exited out. Because in the homeroom class, the teacher is also providing intervention supports. And so we know that we can kind of pass the baton back to them at some point.
I know there's only been a few, but are the kids that have exited, have you noticed, like, are they sad? Do they know the difference? I mean, are they?
Well, they do love coming to see us. But
I might get. Can I come to reading?
You know,
You graduated.
It is a real it's fun. It is a very safe place for students, and that is one of the joys of having them come in. I had a student once tell me that they feel seen, or they said, I feel like you know me here. Wow, I wish I could find his words. He's in high school now. I used to teach intervention before, but that just sticks with me, and I think about that when the kids come in, and so they do feel sad to leave, but it's also a joyous thing. I mean, they see their progress, you know, and if they don't, when they're getting down on themselves, sometimes I'll take out a book from the beginning of the year and say, like, look. You know, do you remember reading this? And they're like, oh, yeah. So anyway, so it's usually they see us in the hall, but it's usually a joyous occasion that, like, look at you. You're moving on your own. All right, and then, so here's Dana Gray, and these are the students that I am familiar with, that Margaret and I are familiar with. And we have had, so looking at our 3rd grade, like I said, I feel like we've seen them progress through that block of their 1st grade reading skills, which is really going from beginning readers to being ready to be more independent and take on more complex text. So it's been really exciting. And then you see, it's not, there are some students that haven't progressed as much as we'd like. And so that's another situation where we do look at it as a team. We have a solutions team to talk about students who might need a different kind of support. All right. And then 4th grade, I feel like we had pretty similar outcomes as the 3rd. We had some that really kind of took off right in the beginning. It felt like they kind of had some latent skills from not being in a classroom, and that just with the little push, they really took off. And then at the bottom, you'll see it looks a little different because those starting scores were lower. Those are newer students to us, to the district, so that's why they weren't included original cohort there. And then our 5th grade, we have some really strong growth, but then we also had, I would say, slower overall. And I think it is a testament to why early intervention is so important. Their age, as far as accepting instruction and like the social emotional component of being in an intervention class, is hard for some 5th graders. So I think that part makes it a little bit more challenging. And once you get into the higher levels, progress is slower. As you move through, it's not as dramatic as when you're working through those early grades. And then we have our I-Ready scores, which we had quite a few students. We were so excited to see some green. It was really it really cause for celebration. But we kind of think of it like this is our starting point for next year, and are feeling hopeful about where we'll take it from there. So, yeah, do you have any questions?
Any other questions?
I was just thinking that the 5th graders, by that time, they just kind of give up. By that time, they feel like, well, I'm the dumb one, or I don't understand.
I don't need this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine. Like, no, come.
So I'm just wondering if there's other strategies more along the social emotional to get them hooked into seeing the importance of it, and that you're not dumb. You're not reading
well,
for,
that is part of it is like building confidence for sure. And what I see in 5th graders sometimes is when you sit down and listen to them, they have some reading behaviors that they need to unlearn. Like, for example, skipping through or mumbling through words when it just doesn't pop to them right away, where we have to go back to some levels, like say they are at a level O, well, we go back a few so they can apply some of those strategies at an easier text, and then hopefully that helps them accelerate forward. I think for the older students, that's something. They have some habits that they've kind of been getting away with that make it hard for them to progress to longer, like multisyllabic words or words that they don't know right when they see them.
Great. That's a great program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And do we know
Thank you, ladies. Great job.
the consumables, that part, that big heavy financial piece, that's
So
kind
the
of like how
consumables
do you?
for LLI are not as intense as the consumables for our other programs.
For other curriculums,
We did
okay.
a one-time big purchase. There are some consumables with LLI because we do send the kids home with books, but the majority of those do come back. But do they keep them at home, Sarah?
Yeah, Miranda.
Yeah, please.
Oh, thank you. So, the books, like the ones you were just looking at, are the ones that they read in class, and that's the quality. And there are identical copies of those in black and white that are the consumables, and those go home with the students at certain levels. So the orange, the green, and the blue system, which takes us all the way up to level K, have copies of those books that go home with the students, and they're supposed to be kept for their students to have their collection. We have kids, that talk about their library that they have at home, and that's what they read for their reading homework with their parents. From the red system up, which is K through Z, could be, there are no consumables. So that's where.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Great.
And I
thank you.
believe when we purchased consumables for multiple years.
Yes. We have some, we tried to predict which ones we would use, and now we have we see that we might need more of some that we didn't predict we were going to use as much. But we have many ready to go for next year.
And it's not going to be at the same level as that original purchase.
Right, right. But this program they'll be able to use for a couple more years or a year? Or?
We plan on evolving with LLI.
Right.
And so we started this year with 2 teachers at Redwood and 2 teachers at Dana Gray. We have it in our LCAP to continue for those 2 teachers for next year, and then we'll reevaluate because we may, with the great work that we're doing, we may only need 1 teacher. Originally, we had said we were only going to do 1 teacher at Redwood and 1 teacher at Dana Gray. Then we were looking at the incredible list of students who needed help. So we said, okay, we'll add in one more and we'll have that person go back and forth and we'll have 1.5. And it didn't make any sense. And as we were evaluating students at the end of last year, it became very clear that even if we had 2 at each site, 2 was still going to be fully stretched.
Right.
So we're at 2. The hope is that with early intervention, like you now see where the second grade is going to start, the hope is that with early intervention, after next year, we can reduce by 1 teacher at each site, or at least one teacher at Redwood, and then maybe the 3rd year after 1 teacher at Dana Gray. And the hope is that we can reduce the teacher at the middle school. I don't want anybody to think they're losing a job. They're not losing a job. We have lots of teaching positions, but we would reshuffle at that point.
Okay. Yeah, because it seems super successful. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah and Margaret. Margaret left, but thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, the next item is 2-year professional development plan update.
So I just wanted to give you this to, just to make sure that you had it in your mind, some of the things that we've been working on, because I know that when I exit on June 30th and we start with the new superintendent, that you understand the work that we've done and the path. It's never been that we were going to do professional development for a one and done. It's always been a longer growth. We've been now with Kelly Smith, I think this is our 4th or 5th year with her. This is our 4th year with her. So the middle school and high school have had her longer. She just started diving in very deeply with our elementary schools, so we want to keep that positive trajectory going. So I just wanted to present to you so that you can see where our professional dollars are allocated right now, so that you have an idea of where we're going. It's not something that isn't planned.
Right.
So that's just to give you that idea for the next 2 years. Of course, I won't be here. If you decide to change, I would just encourage you to make sure that it's a very thoughtful, targeted change. The good news is you have a great team, you have a wonderful staff. I really do believe that folks are going to work incredibly well with Kelly and keep it moving forward. We are so much further ahead, and we could not get this level of service from anywhere in our county. We had to contract with Kelly Smith in order to get the level of services that we need. So I'm hugely grateful for Kelly and what she's provided. So 2-year plan you see before you. Jimmy Crudison is our cultural competency consultant. It's the work that we need to do. It's the work that we absolutely need to do. So again, 2 years, you can see that it's going to take a long time to do some of this. Part of the difficulty with our professional development is timing. We have 2 days at the start of the year to do professional development, and any teacher will tell you when they come in on those 2 days, they're not really thinking of long term. They're thinking kids are getting here in 4 days. I don't have my classroom together. Moms and dads are going to come through here in a little bit. So there's a lot of tension. The wonderful news is that we now have that day in November, that one day in November, the first working day in November. It's not enough time. So we have to be creative on how we get our professional development delivered and digested by our team. We are using our early release days as much as possible. We are looking at substitutes as much as possible, with a balance there, because we want our kids to have our dedicated teachers in front of them. So there's a balance with all of this, but I wanted you to be able to see this so that you know what I'm passing on to the next superintendent. Our administrative council has also reviewed this, so this is not something done in isolation.
Thank you. Any questions?
So sorry. I was just wondering if the plan for Jimmy is to expand out to the other sites next year?
That's really for all of our sites. And so we're going to be working with Jimmy to figure out a way to get to our sites. Originally, we had this big plan that we were going to do things Redwood and Dana Gray and middle school and high school. And what we're discovering is that there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done, internal assessments. And Jimmy was really clear that he didn't want to cause more harm, that he wanted to make sure that what we were doing was allowing folks to kind of discover in themselves where they are in this process. So what we've discovered is that we need to keep this as small as possible, meaning we're going to keep Redwood with Redwood, Dana Gray with Dana Gray. The middle
Knows where the investments are. It's generally fairly conservative, so I'm not anticipating that June will see the kind of tumultuousness that we're seeing this last week in the markets, because they're sort of required to be more conservative in that. So, interest rates as far as earnings went up a little bit last year, and then they kind of leveled off and dropped off a little bit again. And even though our interest rates that we're paying are going up a little bit, that doesn't always equate to interest earnings increasing at all. But it's a fairly leveled portfolio, and I'm not expecting any great fluctuations.
Any questions? This is the same report. Okay, moving on to graduation update,
Fun stuff.
8.76.
All of our graduation ceremonies will be outdoors, including alternative education. One of the highlights of COVID is bringing alt-ed graduation to Piper Field. I think the graduation ceremony last year was so much more intimate and just better for kids. So they're going to be redoing that. They're going to be creating a new tradition. Middle school and high school will continue to be at Timberwolf Stadium. There will be no tickets this year. It's outdoors, so there's no real requirements for that. So we're looking forward to that. The times, Wednesday, June 8th, is alternative education, and that will begin at Piper Field at 5:30. June 9th is the middle school promotion in Timberwolf Stadium. That will begin at 5 o'clock. And June 10th will be the Fort Bragg High School commencement ceremony in Timberwolf Stadium, and that will begin at 5 o'clock as well.
Is there a parade?
There's no parade this year. We're going back to normal times.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on graduation? So next is COVID-19 update.
So one of the questions that all of us have is, what is next year going to look like?
Mhm.
And I can tell you, none of us know.
No.
We can anticipate and we can guess. I gave you, or Renee sent you a little document that will go into the meeting minutes. Hot off the presses from Capital Advisors today at 2:42 p.m. What they talked about the highlights of what's going on with COVID-19 for next year. There's lots of legislation that is looking at what we are going to have to do next year. We have senators who are still asking us to have a COVID-19 plan. We have a group of educators who are now calling it the plandemic because everything has a plan. Long story short, we really don't know what next year is going to look like. Are we going to continue with testing? I can tell you that the superintendents across the state do not want to be public health anymore. We simply cannot have that onus on our educators. It has created too much of a workhorse that is really not fair, to be quite honest with you. So what we are hoping is that we will be returning to semi-normal conditions. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I made the comment at one of our last public health meetings that I was working with a family and tried to explain to them that we have to get back to a place where folks understand that you're going to get sick. We hope that it won't be with COVID, but part of being a human and growing up is that healthy immunity aerobics. And it's unreasonable for any of us to believe that we are going to go from birth to death without ever getting some kind of a cold or an illness. And just to tell you, I said this at the last board meeting, when the masks became optional, still strongly advised, but when they became optional, we saw the common cold go through our district, like quickly. And then the lovely stomach bug came. And we were testing people. I saw so many Q-tips going through the district office, getting in your nose, do you have COVID? And they were all negative tests. Then our surge came through with the second variant, which was interesting because people had said that the stomach bug was way worse than the second variant. So I will tell you that school superintendents, when we meet with AXA, we are all echoing the same message that we want to relinquish all testing from our school system and move that back into the medical professionals and not have that be part of the school system. Long story short with this, I have no idea where we're going to be next year. I have no idea who's going to require what from us. My hope is that we will no longer have to have any kind of testing regimen within our district. I will say very publicly, thank you, Wendy Boyce, because she was able to keep us on top of our COVID tests. When we did prom for the high school, many of the students who were coming from out of the area, other high schools, we required them to get COVID tests. They called the high school and said, well, we don't have tests. Our school doesn't have enough to do this. And our supplies have been strong. We have not denied anyone a COVID test who's come to the front office. We've really worked with our community, and we have enough COVID tests to get us, I believe, into next December. And I think that is a very conservative estimate. So we are in great shape. We have always made sure that we are ahead of the curve. So our supplies are good. When I walk away, the district's in good shape. You should be able to have enough tests until December easily. We have, I talked to Barry today, we have more hand sanitizer than I think I could ever imagine. We have wipes. With our masks, the masks that we have left are the K95 and the KN95s. The surgical masks have all been dispersed to the classrooms in the district. So we're sitting in a great place. Again, last comment I'll make with this, my hope is that we no longer become the testing agents, and that some of this comes back to a normal place, and we understand and accept the fact that as humans we do get sick. None of us want to get so seriously sick, but we need to get back to a normal place. So,
Any other questions? So there's been no change at the state level,
there was a change with Cal OSHA that happened on May 6th, and that was about testing and masking, and I can send you parts of that. That was actually sent to me from the Lake County Office of Education, and so I can send you that. There were just a few things.
It's still,
on
they're
Cal
still
OSHA.
recommending,
Correct.
recommending masking and testing. I just didn't know what our stock was, if students still go to their school site to test, or they should go to their doctor, because it seems like
We're still okay.
Yeah,
We are still okay.
Any of those tests going home with families if they need them, or they're all still staying at the district at
Nope.
the
So we
offices?
have at-home tests. We sent everybody with at-home tests on right before spring break. We still have a box of at-home tests. So when families come in, if they are sick and they ask for an at-home test, we'll give them one. We don't have that many left, but we do have enough that we're.
I have a whole bunch that are ordered.
That
So we should have more to be able to send home over the summer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the summer.
So, are we ordering more?
I did.
Okay. See, again,
Supply
thank you,
chain
Wayne Boyce.
issues.
Yeah,
So-
'cause I mean, I still have some at home personally, but I'm able to buy them, so, but not
Well, and like I
everyone's in
said,
that.
Wendy's been super on top of when there's a supply chain issue, she just kind of orders and no one knows that it happens. And then all of a sudden, like 18,000 boxes show up. So Barry's been able to move some stuff out because we've been using his office. But so our hope is that we're going to have this next shipment come in so that before summer we can hand them off. And just to let all of you know, I did call the clinic today to ask about a second booster shot for our staff prior to the summer. And then we can look and work with the clinic again to see about doing, if people don't do a second booster shot before summer, if they want to do a second booster shot in the fall. So I'm still working with the clinic to set those up so that we can have vaccines available for our employees. We are making this shift that it's not going to be paid so much by public health anymore, but by our insurance. So for our 8-hour employees, they're required to have district insurance. So for our employees who are not, the vaccines are still very affordable. So when we meet in June, I should have more information on that. Like I said, I'm hoping to get another vaccine clinic for us, for the employees on site, and then I'll set that up with the next person so that they have those contacts and continue to do something like that in the fall, or have them available during registration when kids come in. We did get kids that way last year.
And the next item on the agenda is construction projects. And I don't know,
So
Wendy
Don's not going to be here tonight. There's not a whole lot that has changed since 3 weeks ago.
Right.
They've done a little more scratching around out there. There are more people in orange shirts. There's some heavy equipment moving around and probably a little more dust in the school. Sorry about that. But they are moving along. One of the nice things that's in this report that I'm not sure if has been included before is the master schedule timeline.
Mhm.
So that gives everybody an idea of when things are really going to start rocking and rolling.
Which is tiny.
It is tiny, but it's
And it's sideways.
yeah.
And so on page 4, that's just need to be revised because it's still saying the phases are.
Yeah,
haven't been
I think he
updated.
hasn't carried those changes through
It-
every
it's-
document
it's-
yet, but.
It is in there, in other areas, but just that page
Right
4.
there, I think he's still trying to find them all, and I would try to go through them and find them too, but I have missed that one, so. I think everybody's clear on what's happening though.
We should print out a big blueprint size.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay, the,
So
what,
we- so we
the
can see
schedule?
yeah.
The
Okay.
master schedule, the contractor.
Okay.
says.
Make myself
Does
a
anyone
note.
have any questions?
Wendy, do we know when we'll hear about that grant, the facilities grant that Don
No.
talked about? No.
Any more than we'll hear about all the real details of it.
Okay.
But I just want everybody out there, right
Right.
here with the facilities grant.
Yeah.
We are incredibly hopeful. There was more talk after the deadline of that facilities grant closed on April 30th about the state legislature potentially infusing more money into facility projects. So we had a few senators really get to the forefront and say we need to fund all of these facility projects. So I am grateful that we got our application in on April 30th. We were, you know the process. We were nervous. Do we do it? Do we not do it? And that was because the requirements. We were told, I know you're going to be shocked. The state gave us many iterations of their interpretations of this. So we just went ahead and did it. Dawn and I and Barry and Kevin Chapin and Wendy, we all just read through that application vigorously and we said, okay, we're doing it. So we got it in. Again, we're hopeful. So we'll see where we land on that. I anticipate that you will hear something from the state not even until July, if we're lucky. And that's if we're lucky. And you can already see that Wendy's like, yeah, we'll see. It's probably going to be more of the fall. The reason I say July is because I'm hoping that when the state budget passes in June, it has to pass with whatever iterations, but when it passes in June, the hope is that some of that legislation is going to go into the facility projects and give that a little bit more of a robust leap in funding. And with that, I'm hoping that these April 30th applications will get approved because there weren't as many as the state has anticipated. So they are opening up looser restrictions with it. So again, we were part of the first crew. The number of districts who didn't even put in an application because they felt they didn't meet the requirements, which is where we were at. But we said, we think we can. So we did. So again, I'm hoping for July. We'll see how the state budget gets passed in June. Wendy's probably more correct, as she always is. It'll probably be more like the fall.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we move on to CSEA report.
So Martha Lopez, who was here earlier as our bilingual family liaison, is the president of our CSEA local chapter, and she provided a report in your packet, and she provided that
In advance.
In
yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had it
Very
last
good.
Friday. It was
Yes,
fantastic.
it was made it for the weekend review.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And then here for, oh, do you want to, sorry.
Fort Bragg District Teachers Association report, FBDTA.
I don't really have a report. We're going to prepare something like kind of an end-of-year review for the June board meeting. But just to the earlier point, I think generally spirits are pretty high with the teachers. It's obviously been a very challenging year, but I think that's been offset with being back in the classroom with the students. And so, the negatives of things that have gone on, that we've had to kind of work through this year as a result of COVID, balanced out with just being back where they want to be, which is in the classroom with the kids. I guess the only other news is the tentative agreement is in the hands of the members now. They're reviewing. We'll be voting on that pretty soon. Just want to thank Wendy and Becky for all the work with the bargaining unit to come up with something that I feel confident will be well received and will pass comfortably. So we'll see in a couple of weeks when that comes through. But all in all, folks are ready for the summer, but I think we're in a pretty good place. And we'll have more next month to kind of go through what the year's been like.
Thank you, Gary.
Great.
Gary Lewis is the current president, and thank you to Sarah. Sarah and Gary and I kind of went through the roughest years with
Yeah.
COVID. And so I am incredibly appreciative to both of you for taking on those leadership roles. They are not easy. And we've had many conversations about the challenges. And I will gladly say, when I'm in different pastures, we can have some great conversations.
Off the record. But thank you very much to both groups for all their efforts, and 5 more weeks till summer. We're all counting. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent items, and these are non-controversial and routine. And if we could have Vice President Makala read the items.
Item 9.1, warrants. Consider approval of warrants dated April 1st through 31st of 2022, except there are only 30 days in April. So we might need to make that change. Moving on, item 9.2, minutes, April 11th, 2022 special meeting, April 19th, 2022 special meeting, April 21st, 2022 regular meeting, April 30th, 2022 board workshop. Item 9.3, personnel action report, and item 9.4, contracts.
Okay, so do we have anything to pull, or may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda consent items.
With the date correction?
With the date correction, April 30th.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. And seeing, so there's a first and a second, and so all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So moved. Seeing no objection. So the next item on the agenda is an oral recommendation that we've worked with legal, and I recommend that the board approve a superintendent's employment contract for the 2022-23 and 2023-24 school years with an annual salary of $158,000 for the 2022-23 school year, and subject to a satisfactory evaluation, an annual salary of $161,160 for the 2022-24 year, or by the rate of increase to the certificated administrator's salary schedule for 2023-24, whichever is greater, and may be increased at any time during the term of this contract at the sole discretion of the board, and health and welfare benefits at the total cost of $13,998. So that's the oral recommendation, and that moves us right on to the board action items, which is 11.1, Superintendent 2002-2023 and 2023-2024 salary and fringe benefits. So this is discussion and possible approval. So that's my oral recommendation, and there can be discussion or a motion.
I'll move to approve item 11.1, Superintendent 2022-23 and 23-24 salary and or fringe benefits.
Second.
And is there a second? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And President Paley, may we take a brief break?
Yes,
to
thank you
stretch?
first. Thank you for letting us pause. So it's 8:33. Did you want to take a 5-minute?
Sure.
Very
Can
good.
we make it 4? I really would like to get the administrators home. I know
Oh,
it's
I
only
know.
a minute, but they
We can wait. We'll wait till after them.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I mean,
Except we have one more
if-
before
I
you.
said it could really only take 3 minutes because it's not that far down.
No, it's
if you're-
fine. Let's go.
Yeah.
No.
No discomfort. Okay.
No, it's not. No, it's all about stretching. It's good.
Okay, so we're going to 11.2, which is the employment contract for the period commencing July 1, 2022, and ending July 30th, 2024. And the title is Superintendent. So this is for discussion and possible approval of the employment contract for that period. So is there any discussion? The contract has been vetted with legal, and it is attached to this agenda.
I would just like to thank President Paoli for the countless hours she's put in during this process. I do have to say publicly that it's been an interesting, somewhat challenging, but very rewarding experience. And getting to know you guys has been great through all this. But just really thank you for leading us through this charge, having it happen as quickly as it did and as efficiently as it did. So, and Mary, you did a lot. I mean, everyone worked hard, but you guys really put a ton into it. So thank you.
Yep, thank you, Diana.
Um,
She did you can't even believe how much time this woman's put in.
But let's get back to business.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's
so-
just, it's,
yes.
you know, discussing the contract.
Yes. So we do have a potential employment contract that we have negotiated with our top final candidate. So this is the opportunity to have a discussion or to make a motion.
I'll move to approve the superintendent contract for the period commencing July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2024.
In a second?
Sure.
Okay. Jerry. And roll call, please.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Very good. And I'll be brief because I know you have a deadline and they have a deadline.
I don't have it.
But I happen to just have this hat, so I had to push this process along and make sure we were staying on track. But I can't thank our staff for being on the panel, helping us all day doing interviews. We had another staff member that was our greeter. I can't thank Renee and Wendy. We had to lean on them a ton. We had to prepare, we had a ton of meetings. We were so over-meetinged. We had to reconvene our regular so that we could talk about the survey, do in-person and virtual, having 2 board members available. Then we had to go over the results of the survey, and we had to create interview questions. We had to create a new rubric. We had to screen applications. So then we had to, attend the all day, and then we had follow-up interviews. Then we had to reconvene about 5 times the regular so we could talk about contract and talk about, calling references and prior employment and current employment and site visits and working with legal and going back and forth with that contract language and the formality. So thank you for the vote and the confidence. We're looking forward to allowing me to sign the contract to ratify it. And then we will be scheduling a meet and greet. Anxious for that, and then we'll start beginning the transition process. So we're very happy to welcome Joe Aldridge in July.
I just wanted to say
July
his name.
Yeah.
We, several superintendents ago, hired a professional firm to do this for us. That would have cost us $25,000, and we wouldn't even be doing interviews yet. So anyway, it worked out really well, and Dan, it worked. Everybody did.
We worked really well together, and I'm honored to be working with everyone on this board, and the staff have been super helpful. So and my last comment is everyone that we touched, reached, we talked to tons of staff in other districts, and it is really gratifying to be doing the goodwill of this job. We don't get paid here at the board, but there are so many good people out there doing the right thing with kids. And so this process was grueling. I'm not going to, it was nonstop, and it was like, I just want to go home. I don't want to think about this. But it was pretty gratifying that way to just know how many people are touching kids and they're at the right place and wonderful people. So the experience was positive that way to keep us going. But thank you to the board for helping and the staff. So we will move on to Fbusd school plans for student achievement for 2022-23. Redwood Elementary is first up.
This is the exciting part of the year. Best meeting ever, when we get to look at the site plans for our schools. And just so that the board and our viewing audience understand that many districts actually do this site plan approval in September and October. And I'm really proud of us in Fort Bragg Unified for doing this work in May, because it gives us a clear vision of what we need to work on in the summer to get ready to boots on the ground running in August. So thank you, team, for getting this done.
Thank you. I'm only going to refer to the portions of the site plan that there are changes in and to highlight a couple of things that I'm excited about. Goal 1 is substantially the same. We are starting the college and career portfolios at Redwood. So every child is creating a self-portrait with a sentence about what they want to be when they grow up. I've been in a couple classrooms the last week where I've heard some great conversations. In a second grade class, there was a lovely discussion about why the teacher was not going to list hacker as one of the potential jobs that we were going to highlight, and why garbage collector was going to go on that list. It was really funny. But those are starting to roll in. Please come visit at open house. All of those are going to be posted in our classroom so you can get a little snapshot of what our kids are thinking about K2. For goal 2, very few changes in that section as well. I did get some really valuable feedback from our ELAC committee. Thank goodness for Veronica Renteria, truly. They've shared with us that they really want more communication from our site in terms of English learner progress over time throughout the course of the year. I'm talking with our leadership team, and they're in full agreement that we're going to, in collaboration with Tina Krenov, add something to our report card so that we are directly reporting back to families on a trimester basis, specifically about English learner progress, which I think is a great improvement to our reporting system. And I'm going to be working with our staff to create a little pamphlet that's going to highlight what's Benchmark Advance all about, what's our everyday math curriculum all about, our SEL curriculum, all of that, so that at a glance we can say to parents, hey, welcome to Redwood. This is our curriculum, this is how we do things, so that they can feel more connected and more thoroughly informed. And goal 3, our suspension rate's going to go up, guys. It just is. It just is. It's not reflected in this data yet, but that's the reality that's coming down the pike. Our absences also are not going to look stellar. COVID has really, kids have been out. Some of our kids couldn't have been vaccinated for part of this year. They had to quarantine when their mom got COVID. Then they had to quarantine when another family member got COVID. And then they finally got it. So we did have kids out for extended periods of time. Chronic absenteeism and the suspension rate are things that we're definitely going to need to address. But I'm so excited about the strength of the SEL that's going on at our site, the restorative practices. PBIS is going strong. And to highlight the importance of those programs, I wanted to just tell you a little story about a friend of mine in kindergarten whose scores probably don't look very good right now. He has really struggled to access what's going on in his classroom. He would prefer to be out on the playground. The way that the drinking fountain works is really magical to him. A couple months ago, I had an interaction with him where he said, I don't want to talk to you. You're going to make me do stuff. Building relationships with our kids at this level it's essential. It's important at all levels. He has previously enjoyed activities such as pushing his teacher, throwing things in the classroom, using expletives. Over time, the conversations with him have gone from, don't worry, Mrs. Erickson, I'm just a wild boy, to being able to take responsibility for his actions and acknowledge how that affects other people. And yesterday when he said goodbye, he waved and said, I love you. The work that we're doing with our restorative practices and the social system that we're developing at Redwood is creating an environment for children like this one, where he's going to like coming to school. We're changing that for him. It takes time, and we really appreciate your patience, but it's happening, and it's really exciting to see, especially on a personal level. Do you have any questions about the site plan?
Anyone? Just thank you for the story. That's very telling of a typical day at Redwood this year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And we have Dana Gray Elementary.
You need to vote on these individually.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Thank you for pausing. So we need a motion to approve the school plan for student achievement for Redwood Elementary.
I'll move to approve the school plan for student achievement for Redwood Elementary.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And President Paley?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And now we are ready for Dana Gray Elementary School Plan for Student Achievement.
Thank you. So our plan is very much in the same vein of, whoa, this is really low. Very much in the same sort of pattern of consistency and continuing with a lot of the same things that we have planned for this year and for next. In Goal 1, the college and career goal, we're continuing to be very focused on the digital portfolios. Some of our first, and in the same way, our first digital portfolios are coming out very soon, and what we're going to be adding to those, so that's very exciting. We have a new counselor who's going to be joining us next year, and that counselor and I are going to focus on the Dana Gray Career Day. We didn't have it this year, and it was, anyway, unfortunate, but we're going to bring it back, and we're going to bring it back with great gusto. So that is our plan related to the college and career and the major changes that are there. The second is increase academic achievement. And the part that, oh, I wish I could show you. The part that is really interesting to me is that we're getting so very good at measuring our data. And, you know, even in an age when we didn't have the CASP test, we were still able to measure growth amongst our students. So if you see, and it's actually on page 31 of 41, at least on mine, might be a little different on yours, but you can see the iReady data assessments, and our goal was 5% growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We're actually able to track that this year we made that goal as well. So the percentages are all in there, and so our working with data is really to great effect. Within this strategy related to academic achievement, are continuing with those universal academic screenings, using iReady to great effect, continuing with then getting that data out to teachers, having meetings and lead team meetings and teacher meetings about looking at the data, analyzing the data, and then really looking at our Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction, and how do we improve that in the classroom, on the ground, and improving it quickly. And then the last bit is continuing with the TOSA. The TOSAs at the elementary level have made a massive difference in what we're doing. And we continue to have teacher turnover, and you know, new teachers are joining our profession, and having that level of support for them as well as existing teachers is really powerful. Goal 3 is about culture at Dana Gray, and it's interesting again, you know, I'm very interested in the measurable outcomes, this part here, because we're measuring average daily rate of referrals, total number of office referrals, chronic absenteeism. During COVID, my referral rate went to 0.07. That must be like one kid that got a referral the entire year that we were out. But what we're noticing is that the referrals are back up again. And it's because of the need for counseling. It's the need of kids coming back to us with trauma, with a lot of things going on with our kids. And so it just reiterates to us the importance of restorative practices, the importance of what our counselors are doing. So the activities, number one activity, we're going to do the respect agreements. We're going to continue with that process. And we have found that at Dana Gray to be really powerful within the classroom setting, within staff to staff setting, and from administrator to staff setting, and administrator to kids setting. Respect agreements are really important. Activity number 2 is we are going to have a pod squad. We've had staff sort of turnover, and the impetus has, anyway, people love it, and we know that it's wonderful to have a group that is patterned after Link Crew, after the Web Crew, and we need to do that for our 5th grade students, so we're going to continue with that in the next school year. And then also we're going to focus this new school counselor on assemblies. We need to get parents back into our schools and really be doing like parent nights, educational nights, informational nights, and we're really making a commitment to refocus on that in the next school year. And that's, there you go. there's our site plan.
Very good.
Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, otherwise, a motion?
I'll move to approve the Dana Gray Elementary School plans for student achievement.
In a second?
Second. Oh.
So Jerry seconds, and roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Very good. So we have Fort Bragg Middle School.
Laura Vieira, Fort Bragg Middle School. Our 3 goals remain the same. They're aligned with the district's LCAP. The major difference for us for next year will be adding the ELD sections that Tina Krenoff spoke about, and then continuing to weave through the MTSS practices that we've been working on. Actually, with Dana Gray, we are one of two sites in, well, out of seven districts in the entire state. So we're continuing to work on that as well. So really the ELD sections are what we're adding next year, and everything else pretty much remains the same.
Very good.
Questions?
Seeing no questions, motion, please. And I should
I'd
ask
like it
if we're-
noted mine was faster.
So, and I should pause. I'm sure that if we're getting any input from the board meeting,
There is
that you
no
would be, you're just letting the public know you're constantly monitoring it.
We
So
are
even though I'm not
constantly
asking
monitoring.
for it, you will let me know as soon as something comes in.
Yes.
Thank you.
It'll
Okay.
probably flash on the screen.
So we were waiting for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Fort Bragg Middle School plan for student achievement for 22-23.
In a second.
Jerry can have it.
Second, and a roll call, please.
You're making it tough for me to get it.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we have Fort
Triplets
Bragg
on
High
the
School.
They told me to get ready. Let's get going over here.
Yeah.
Just say, are there any questions?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Motion,
No, I'm
please.
gonna go through. No, ours is, like I said, ours has changed minimally as well, just like everybody else's. I think we're sticking with our goals. Because of COVID, I think it's, with our WASC, it shows we need to continue with them. So goal 1, really the biggest change that we had is Cal Poly Humboldt. The TRIO program is working with our APID department. So they've partnered up and had some trips already this year, so it's been great. We're having more college trips with the support of the A through G block grant next year. Our Career and College Center, there's finally able to get some people in there. Since COVID restrictions have kind of decreased, so there'll be more speakers, and it's from careers, and so Eve Yeomans, she's been getting some folks in there. So she's had a few this year, but next year she's trying to plan on quite a few more, at least once or twice a month. In goal 2, our student achievement, we're going to continue with Kelly. She's been doing a great job. Our data analysis, it's the conversations are great, and I think it's important that we continue with that. Next year we are taking out our essential classes, which are, it kind of tracks kids. So we're going to try it next year, and I think with the support of Kelly Smith and doing some tier 2 instruction, I think it's, we're going to see if it works. And I hope it, that we can figure it out, because it's been tough when these kids go from one class to another and they're with each other all day long. So we're going to see how it works. And definitely our math, we need to work on our math scores. It's with the pandemic has not helped. I mean, math in general across the state is low, and the pandemic has not helped. So we're going to work super hard on increasing our academic achievement in math. School culture, the great thing I wanted to highlight is our healthy kid survey. Even in the pandemic, our scores increased from, it was 19, 20 to 21, 22. I shared it with our school board, our site council, and it went up like 30-something% on the relationships with adults. And so it was great to see, even with the pandemic, that kids still felt they could have a relationship with a caring adult through the screen. So it was great. So it was good to see. We're going to continue, fun things. I mean, I think even with our staff, I think, the more fun that you learn at the link crew, the more fun you have with each other, the more the kids see it. So I think that's important as adults. We've been, went back into the classroom with the pandemic, and I think it's we need to be around each other and kids to see us having fun as well. So we're going to work on having more fun things at school for the adults and the kids. And, you know, again, restorative practices helped. You know, it's a work in progress. It takes a lot of work to get everybody together and learn and have them understand that what they do affects not just themselves but everyone around them. So it's been good to start it, and we need to continue with that. Working with Jimmy Cruison, who's cultural competency, it's been great. And again, those conversations are needed. And I think once kids feel like they have a voice and they and everybody else understands where they come from, I think it creates a better environment at school. And of course, you got to have those fun lunchtime activities and all those dress-up days. We got to continue with that because I think the kids do like it, and it's good to, you know, to have fun together, and so we're going to work on that. I think that's about all I have. Is there any questions?
Do you have any questions?
I was thrilled to see you were bringing back lunchtime activities and all those things that raise morale. That's awesome. Kids do love dress up, and so do the staff. I did have a question because I kept seeing portfolios. So the portfolio that's starting at Redwood and then goes on to Dana Gray and then moves on to you and all the way through high school. So our kids will have, that's amazing. That's huge.
The idea behind it is to create an electronic portfolio so that the kids can see how they've matured through the years.
Right.
So that in kindergarten, if they wanted to be a race car driver, and then how it changes. And they can still keep going back to it. So the idea is that for us as a school district, we have Google. That can follow them. It can follow from teacher to teacher, but it gives the kids a record of each year.
To see how they've grown.
To see if they've
amazing.
changed. And
Yeah.
maybe they continue to want to be a race car driver.
Could be.
Very good.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
any question? No, if there are no questions, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve Fort Bragg High School's, oh, I looked at the wrong place.
School plans?
School plan for student achievement, sorry.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And our school plan for student achievement, alternative education.
So our site plan hasn't changed since last year. Our goals are the same. We continue with big picture learning and restorative practices and design lab, professional development. And so we are along the same track we were last year. So are there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
It was great to see all those kids doing all those things. That music program they have?
Oh, it's
What-
amazing.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They can be so creative.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no questions, may I have a motion?
Move we approve the plan for student achievement for the Alt Ed for 22-23.
And
I'll
a second?
second.
Thank you. And roll call, please.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank
And so
you.
we will take a,
I can tell we all need a break.
yeah, 5-minute break.
I just want to stay.
Nate, can you mute sound for us? Thank you. There you go.
Okay, thank you. We will return back to the agenda at 9:04. And so the next action item is 2022-23 Inter-District Transfer Memorandum of Understanding with Mendocino Unified School District.
So we have an MOU with Mendocino Unified in regards to interdistrict transfers and their school of choice program. I will say that this MOU has made transfers incredibly streamlined. It is not turned into an opinion. It's not turned into an argument back and forth with families. It has presented a very matter-of-fact way for us to look at how kids go back and forth between Mendo and Fort Bragg. It's been beneficial, I believe, for both school districts. Jason and I did discuss this. Jason Morris, the superintendent of Mendocino, we reviewed the MOU. There was really nothing in it to change. I did make a note to Jason to just remind him that our enrollment has dropped, so that number is going to decrease. So there's a large group of students from Fort Bragg who will be graduating from Mendocino this year. So it opened up 2 more spots for kids to, for families to ask for the transfer, and those spots have already been filled.
Okay.
What's nice is that this MOU lines out very clearly how it's done. There are specific timelines. So the family who met the timeline was the family who received the signature of approval. And what's great, it doesn't come before you anymore. The only time you will get it to come before you if there is an extenuating circumstance, as it's outlined in the MOU. So the old MOU is now expired. Well, will expire on June 30th. So we bring before you the new MOU. Both Jason and I, like I said, we've reviewed it with legal, we've reviewed it with each other. So it's before you as an action item.
Well, thank you. This has been super helpful because I remember meeting when I was first on the board 6 years ago at the Dietrich Center. I think every action item, there was at least 8. And then we had to go through all the minutia of this and that and this and that and policy. And so this has saved everyone a lot of time, and the superintendent has the ability to take care of business during the day, because that's really what it turned up to be. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing no questions or discussion, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the 22-23 Interdistrict Transfer Memorandum of Understanding with Mendocino Unified School District.
In a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Very good. The next item is the Fbusd Transitional Kindergarten.
So we had to pull this last month because wonderful Erin Carter from MCOE called me the day of the board meeting and said, Becky, CDE I've been back and forth with CDE about transitional kindergarten and your timelines. So originally when we brought this up as discussion, we talked about our transitional kindergarten program to be a 3-hour program. That was the minimum number of minutes that we could have the program meet. We were told originally that the eating period of 30 minutes could be counted as instructional minutes as long as the students were eating in the classroom with the credentialed teacher, which is what we had planned to do. Aaron called me and said that he had a discussion with CDE, and they said, no, that's not the case. Wonderful Erin Carter took the email that CDE had sent him that said it was the case, sent it back to CDE, and said, this is what you told me. And this was all happening on the board meeting day. And they didn't get back to him until the day after, and they said, sorry, someone gave you incorrect information. This is the correct information. So there were many of us in the county that were holding on to that 3-hour plan because one of the issues that we have at Redwood is facilities. We do not have enough classrooms to offer a full-day TK program. We won't have enough classrooms to offer a full-day TK program even when we get the 3 new classrooms built. So with that, we have adjusted our day to be a 3.5-hour day, and you're going to see some overlap. We're going to be okay next year because we have 2 classrooms that we have allocated for this, and one's going to be kind of a lunchroom for our TKers, and one's going to be the academic room. And remember, when we're talking about transitional kindergarten, we're talking about students who will start school on the first day at 4 years old. So it's really almost like a preschool program, and it is. So with that, we are going to have some overlap. We are going to be addressing it. We're a little nervous with having our 4-year-olds in the cafeteria. Those are big tables for really little bodies. So for right now, this is our plan, that we are going to have a morning session, go from 8:10 to 11:40. School at Redwood starts at 8:20. This allows our TKers to get into the door before the big rush. They are released at 11:40. They'll have lunch from 11 to 11:30, while our next TK group comes in, our afternoon TK. They will be there from 11 to 2:30. It was hugely important to us that we end the afternoon program at 2:30 so that our teachers all have that collaboration time at the end of the day. So we are going to have only 2 sessions of TK next year. Right now, we have 24 students enrolled in TK. We are going to hold 2 sessions of TK, one morning, one afternoon. We are going to do our very best to honor parents' first request of morning or an afternoon slot. I anticipate that we are not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that we are going to have a lottery system, so we are stuck on facilities. We do not have the classroom space to do all of this. So with that, this is the proposal so that we can publish the start times so that families have a very clear understanding. It's a morning and afternoon slot. Those may not be choices.
Yeah.
We will be serving lunch to all the kids, so they will be eating a meal at the TK time. So we're looking at a 3.5-hour workday for our kiddos. The TK ratio has been approved by FBDTA, so the numbers will be that it will either be a 1-to-10 ratio if we have 20 or fewer kids in the class, or it will be a 1-to-8 ratio if we have 21 to 24 kids in the class. So, previews of upcoming attractions.
Yeah.
The difficulty with TK and K is always, we don't know what we're getting until day 1. So I just hope the 8 people watching right now on our YouTube channel, we need to get the word out to ask our families to really enroll in TK so that we have a better understanding of what we can do with staffing. So this is the plan before you. These are the hours that we're going to publish once you decide yay or nay.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't think you have a whole lot of wiggle room, and obviously this is optional for families, because this would be pretty disruptive if you were a full-time parent, and how do you just stop your day at 11:40 and you just drop them off at 8:10? I guess you just coordinate, because there's no busing for these kids.
There's
'cause
no
they're too
busing for
yeah.
TK.
So it just, I just feel bad for families, but I also know that it's a gift for them to be with staff at Fort Bragg Unified. But they just have to know it's optional. You're not forcing them to do this, but we want them to do, be able to work with their family support so that they can make these times work, because that's challenging, either session.
Well, and it's tricky for everyone in the county, to be quite honest with you. We've been meeting with other school districts and asking them, what are you doing with TK? And across the board, this is a facilities issue. You don't just come in and say, hey, we're adding a grade level. And you're not just adding a grade level, you're adding essentially a preschool. That is a different environment than a high school classroom. We have to make sure that we are allocating our classrooms with bathrooms in them for our kiddos. So it becomes a little tricky. The good news is, with our bond measure, once the new classrooms at Redwood are built, we're building 3 new classrooms at Redwood. There will be over by the preschool wing. Those 3 classrooms will have bathrooms in them, fully ADA compliant potties for little ones, so the little tiny toilet. If you've ever seen the little tiny toilet and you ever had to use a little teeny tiny toilet as an adult, watch your back, literally. So those rooms, once we get them, will be hugely beneficial. We'll have 3 more rooms that could essentially be the TK early childhood portion of the Redwood campus. But right now we're stuck. We simply don't have the space.
Okay.
I have a quick question. There's 10 minutes that I don't know what the kids are doing. So the morning group breakfast or lunch is 11 to 11:30, you said?
So the morning group is going to do lunch from 11 to 11:30.
And then where do they go?
And then after lunch, they got to come back to the classroom and get their little backpacks and clean up the classroom, and then they're gonna do dismissal.
But the other class won't already be in there?
So the other class, okay, the other class at 11:30 is gonna be going out to lunch.
They get here and go to lunch, pretty much.
So they
Yeah.
get here, they do a check-in. It's kind of
And
like,
then they get-
instead of
okay.
breakfast in the classroom, they're gonna get here and do their check-in, and they're gonna go out to lunch while the other kids are
I
coming in.
gotcha.
This is going to be an orchestration
Yeah.
that is going to be a sight to behold, as it's the dance of the 4-year-olds, to be quite
Right.
honest with you. So I have the utmost faith in Maureen Smith, who is our fabulous TK teacher, that she will work with our second TK teacher who's coming on board, and they will orchestrate this beautifully. And if things don't work, here's the great thing: they'll adjust.
Right.
Are you gonna do breakfast in the classroom for the morning?
Breakfast in the classroom for the morning.
Mhm.
We are trying to figure out if we need to do a snack with the afternoon session.
Mhm.
So we're still working that out with Pilar.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Snyder, did you have a question?
So we don't know if we need more than 2 teachers yet.
Correct. I will say that TK, in the 6 years that I've been here, we have guessed TK pretty darn well. People who want TK and know that it's a free preschool have enrolled fairly early. I anticipate that we'll probably have, if I had to guess, I would say that we're probably going to have 36 to 40 kids in TK.
Wow.
And we're at 24 right now.
Okay.
So let me know how it goes in August.
And how does it affect the lunchroom?
Well, that's the
Like
difficulty,
staff
is
and all
that
that?
we are going to be using one classroom as kind of the lunchroom and one class as the academic room. And right now we could do that because we have 2 classes allocated for TK. Where it's going to be tricky is in the fall of 23. Because at that point, when TK opens up to an April 2nd birthday, right? I anticipate that following year, you're probably gonna have over 50 kids, if not close to 60 kids in TK, and you will need 2 morning sessions potentially and 2 afternoon sessions, or 2 morning sessions and 1 afternoon. That's when it's going to get tricky. So what I'm excited about is that we will have our teachers be able to work on this year, to work out the kinks, so that when we come into the really tricky part the year after, they should have some momentum built. When we get to the 24-25 school year, we are hoping that those classrooms will be done, because we've changed the phases of the bond. So that was supposed to be, those classrooms were supposed to be done in 26. We've now changed those phases so that we are hopeful that they will be done when we get to the, 25-26, I think. So we've got some tricky stuff happening here, but it's going to be a dance of the 4-year-olds for sure.
Okay. So do we need more discussion, or may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the FBUSD transitional kindergarten plan.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the next item is the board policy, which was on the agenda last month, and most of them were legal updates, and the options were discussed at the meeting last month. So I think this is pretty routine. Did anyone have any follow-up questions?
So I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve the board policies, administration regulations, and board bylaw updates.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And just so folks, just a reminder, we look at these the previous month, so we've already hashed this out. It's discussion 1 month and it moves to action the following month.
Okay, so the last action item, I believe, is the teleconferencing virtual meeting requirement pursuant to AB 361. And this is just procedural, non-controversial. We're just keeping this as an action item so that we can approve it, just in case, unfortunately, if we all have COVID, we want to still get business done in the district, and we would just do it virtually. But we do encourage in-person Did you have?
So this is tricky, because in 30 days, we don't have a meeting.
Oh,
Our next
right.
meeting is June 16th. So you
We
can
have 5
approve
weeks,
this,
yeah.
that if we need a special meeting, you can move that special meeting to virtual. But I want to make it really clear that you can approve this now, but if we don't meet until June 16th,
Right.
right, we only have an option for an in-person meeting, which we have 2 more meetings. This
Right.
expires June 30th regardless.
Right.
So just know what you're voting on. And I would still encourage you to vote and approve this, because if we need a special meeting and someone is not able to attend, they can attend virtually. So
Right.
just do a little
Well,
math for
and,
us.
because I think you can approve this at a special meeting, so if we needed to have a quorum of 3 to reapprove, if we were down, we could do it simultaneously with the regular.
Yes.
So I think we're covered. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, though, because we do have 6 weeks of slight break, I guess, subtly. So may we do a lot of reading in between meetings. So may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve teleconferencing virtual meeting requirements pursuant to AB 361.
In a second?
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, so now this comes to the information and discussion of the agenda. The first item is 12.1, Student Transportation Plan for 2022-23.
So we have recognized this year that eliminating in-town transportation has been a hardship for many families. And the 2 locations that seem to encompass a majority of children is, if we look north over by John Chimolino Way and where Denny's is, in that area, we have lots of families out there. And then if we look south over by Walnut Street, that we have lots of families out there. So I am not going to recommend to you that we open up in-town transportation fully as we did years ago right now. And the reason I'm saying right now is because right now we are down 2 bus drivers for the fall. We have a person who's indicated that they are going to retire as of June 30th. And then we've had another person who retired earlier in the year. Being down by 2 bus drivers, this puts us in a really tricky spot. If anybody wants to be a bus driver, we train and provide paid training. So just a plug. Bus drivers are hugely important to us. We don't know what's going to happen with legislation. There is a push in the California legislature to provide transportation for all kids. If this happens, this is great because we will get fully funded for transportation. We are not fully funded for transportation right now. There is a chunk of it that comes out of our general fund. However, while that would be fabulous, in order to provide full transportation for our kids, we need to have people who are willing to become bus drivers, who can pass a drug test, who can have the lives of our children in their hands and willingly do it. It's a tough sell. We were successful a few years ago recruiting some bus drivers within the district. And again, we provide the training. They have to come and be willing to try and drive a bus. So for right now, for next year, if legislation passes about transportation, we're going to have a different conversation. But for right now, so that our families can plan, this is a discussion item for you. If this is something you want to move forward, we will move forward to action on June 16th. My recommendation is that for student transportation, we seriously look at adding 2 spots for the fall, one over by John Chimolino Way and Denny's, and one over by Walnut Street. Questions?
So it's just making like a bus stop hub, so people can just at least drop their child off at the bus stop, per se.
Is there enough room on the buses?
Yes. That was our first question. The hard part with fewer drivers is you can't do all of the personalized stops.
Gotcha.
It
Takes too
means
long.
that kids have to be on the bus at
Too long.
ungodly hours. If we have hubs, we can get the kids on and we can get them to school quickly. And believe it or not, the in-town stops are usually the last ones to get picked up.
Yes.
So they actually have the best times.
Yeah. Because when I was a kid, I lived in town, but I was too small to walk home, and I would go all the way out the end of Sherwood Road And I was the last one to get dropped off, even though I was probably the closest. And I get car sick every day. So I would have appreciated the hub. So anyway.
Again, this is just a discussion. This is information. If you would like us to move this to June 16th, we will absolutely do that. And this could all change. This could all change. But I don't know where we are. I'm looking at Wendy because I don't know where we are in the legislative process with transportation. I think it's all part of it.
They want it to
It's
happen.
one
but-
of those things that somebody wants to do, and it's gotten through, I think, at least one level of committee. So it's probably going to be considered, but flip of the coin right now.
And I think what's really difficult is when I am in the meetings for ACSA, which is the Association for California School Administrators, when I'm in those meetings with the superintendents, we are all scratching our head. We're not scratching our head because the state wants to do these wonderful things. We're scratching a head because there's no pre-planning. How do we get all these people hired for our school system? That's what we're struggling with. The huge staffing conundrum will become very clear on July 1 because we have many of our Southern California districts, many of our Northern California districts that start school mid-July. And we're going to have to find people for classrooms, for aid positions, and bus drivers is a hot topic right now. If transportation does go through as it's legislatively proposed, I have no idea how we're going to get kids to where they need to be. If we don't fill those 2 bus driver positions, we're going to be in trouble. I'm just going to be really honest with you. We are holding a job fair on March
tomorrow.
May 19th.
Yeah.
Oh, that was yeah.
That's
May
career day, I
19th.
think.
So Fbusd is holding a job fair on May 19th. The coastal job fair is May 13th, tomorrow. So
Where's the FBUSD job fair?
right in the heart of the parking lot of Fort Bragg Unified, between 2 and 4 p.m. on Thursday, May 19th. We did that purposely because that's when Redwood gets out and the parking lot's closed. And it is a week after tomorrow's event, or 6 days, and we did that purposely so that we could meet people tomorrow and invite them to Thursday for interviewing. So we are hoping to get some bus driver positions. Carolyn will be at the job fair tomorrow. I will get there after I get through policy council, and we're just gonna find people, hey, be a bus driver. It's actually a really good job. It's one of the better paying jobs in the district. So I'm hoping we can find people. And we train. It's fantastic.
I wish I'd mentioned earlier, these people can't be bus drivers yet, but Fort Bragg High School is bringing 25 students tomorrow, and Alted's bringing 7 students tomorrow. So thank you.
It's a big deal. The coastal
that's
job fair is
awesome.
fantastic. So I'm hoping we find people for student transportation.
Right. Well, I think this is mitigating the issue because it has been hard for families.
So do we know how many, my only reservation is that once you open one, then you're gonna get, well, can you do this? And can you, so do you have any idea of the numbers that those 2 stops would serve?
So we anticipate that if both those stops were served with the kids in the general vicinity, and that's loose, okay? We anticipate that there are about, I asked Barry, and I think the number was between 30 and 40 children. So remember that we don't have a huge number of kids who ride the bus, but the difficulty is that sometimes parents need the bus because of a job change, or because of a week on with mom and a week on with dad, and so some of those things are difficult. I wish we could provide transportation for every kid in our district.
Well, yeah,
I really do.
We want to get them there.
We need to get them to school.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this helps. I will say that our families have been champions this COVID year because we haven't done bus transportation for in-town. They've had to endure this full year. So if we can provide some relief, I would encourage us to provide some relief.
Okay.
I think the more stops we can provide, the better. So I'd like to see it come back.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next information and discussion is Alt Ed schedule change proposal.
So this is a draft. I want to say this out loud, and thank you to Gary Lewis, who has really been working with Alted and Connie to come up with some ideas. So community day schools. We have different schools in our alternative education. We have Noyo High School, which is a continuation school. We have Lighthouse Community Day School, and then we have Shelter Cove Community Day School. Community day schools are required to meet for 360 instructional minutes. And then on top of that, a half-hour lunch. The half-hour lunch cannot be included in the instructional minutes. So they are required to be on campus every day for 390 minutes. And that's what our alternative education does right now. Their day begins at 8:45 a.m. Their day ends at 3:15 p.m. Monday through Friday, no minimum days. There is a waiver that Connie has been investigating with her alt ed staff that an alternative community day school site can apply for a waiver. And the waiver is that you can have a minimum day, but the minutes that are not used in that minimum day must be made up within that week. Okay? So if we take alt ed and say we are going to have a minimum day on Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to have those days extend the day by 15 minutes. Then on Wednesday, they can stop school an hour early because they've made that hour. Now the hard part is if we go to a 3-day week with like a Labor Day or a Memorial Day, right? You can't take an hour off on Wednesday because you didn't meet on Monday, or you have to have Tuesday, Thursday, Friday extend for 20 minutes. Now, in speaking to Connie, and Connie working with the staff, and Gary coming and showing the schedules, what makes sense is that if we move this to action, and there's more work that has to be done. We have to investigate the waiver a little bit more, but we wanted to make sure that you had something in front of you, because we don't want to do this. If we do this, we need to do this now before we hit August, right? So what makes sense to us is, if we can get this waiver through, we work with the alt ed site to maintain that 7.5-hour workday for teachers. Is it going to be 8 to 3:30? Is it going to be 7:45 to 3:15? We work with the team to talk about what is their workday going to be, and then from there we pull off minutes that we attach to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and we schedule minimum days only on the full weeks. So if there's a Labor Day, if there's a Veterans Day, October break, right? The families can easily know, is this a minimum day week or is it not? The good news is, years ago, prior to our early release days, we had minimum days thrown in random places.
Yeah, it's like 10 of them, 10 or 15
yeah,
of them.
and as long as we inform the families, they have the calendar early, we can Parent Square message them like crazy, and people will adjust. So Connie and I were on the phone talking about how can we do this easily. If it's a full week, Wednesday you're off an hour early. What's great for alt ed, if we can pull this off, they're going to have their first minimum day the second week of school. For them, this is hugely important because they don't have that whole school collaboration time. And one of the things in their recent WASC report was really trying to work hard on getting the internships together and getting big picture learning fully implemented with all of the components that are included in it. They want to do it, it's just a matter of time. It's hard to do some of those things in the morning because, believe it or not, their prep is from 8 to 8:45. There are many businesses that aren't open yet.
Right.
So what can we do after school? They're also looking at the other sites, looking at data, saying, well, how come we can't have collaboration time? And it's a great use of their time. So the minutes will be made up. It's not like the kids aren't having the same number of minutes for school. The nuances that we haven't figured out yet is just that scheduling. So we're just bringing it before you so that if we can get those things worked out and we can solidify the contents of the waiver and making sure that we're doing this appropriately, then it would be incumbent upon us to present the schedule change prior to school beginning in August so that our families are well prepared.
Okay, any questions?
And all the other sites are staying the same?
Yes.
Yeah. It's definitely something to investigate for sure, so that each site has that time
And we just gave you this schedule. We wanted you to be able to see the schedule side by side, so that you could see what we're looking at. Again, the site might come together and say, no, 7:55 to 3:25, we don't want that. We want 8 to 3:30 or 7:45 to, that's something we can tease out those details later.
Right.
But just to give you an idea of a potential schedule, nothing is in stone. If we do move this to action next month, which I would like to do, and it might not be action until the 24th, or the 23rd,
Third.
only because we need to have a little bit more investigation into the waiver process.
Right.
So if we do bring it to you in action, we will have a final bell schedule for you so that we can have that posted and ready for our families. It may not be this, so I just
Right.
want you to know that.
Well, and really for them to get their leaving to learn component up and running, this is critical. I mean, otherwise it's, as you know, too much.
Yeah.
During the day, you can't do it during your prep period when kids are wandering in and out and, Gary.
You need to go to the mic. Sorry, Gary.
Excuse me.
The last man standing.
I think that, traditionally, there have been there's been reasonable arguments for why we haven't had the minimum. I mean, aside from the legal requirement of 360, going through the whole process of the waiver didn't seem worth it with the program we had before. But where we are now, I mean, aside from the fact that, we're in the middle of basically building a school from the ground up, and there's a lot of stuff going into that, even when we're through that, the program as it stands now is a lot more involved. There's a lot more assessment going on. There's a lot more background stuff taking place that maybe we weren't doing so much of before, and we need to be working together on these things. We don't work in isolation in our rooms. We're a small school. The program has to be aligned. We have to make sure that we're all doing the same things, and so we really, really do need it now. And whereas maybe 2 years ago it wasn't worth the effort that this is going to take to get the waiver, it is now. And I think for us to be able to sort of fully realize what we're doing and get the program to where we think it can be, and to really provide our kids with the opportunities that we can, we need to have this time, and otherwise we're doing it after hours, and that's just going to lead to burnout. And so, so we're really keen to do this. The minutes are tight. It's going to be tough getting the schedule just right, because especially if you start bringing in things like busing and trying to fit all that in so that the kids, have access to those things. But we've been looking. We think we can do it. The staff are on board, and we think this would have a huge positive impact on our program.
Great. Very good.
How long does it take to get a waiver?
That's what we're looking at.
There's a process. There has to be parent input, or at least there has to be a very clear effort to bring parents in, right? So
Opportunity.
My understanding is it can't just be, it's on the agenda. We're going to have to put some stuff out there. We might have to put
there's something happening in Private Field in a couple of weeks. Maybe you could do it then.
I think we'd have to notice in the paper that, at the upcoming board meeting, there's going to be this discussion. We'd have to send out letters. We'd have to Parent Square, all that kind of stuff, and really hit them to say, if you want to come and talk about this, you need to come down and talk about it. We don't yet know exactly how long the process takes once we've turned in paperwork.
But this is the first process because this is public.
Yeah.
This was agendized, so we're trying to get the ball rolling. And I anticipate that if we bring this back to you for action, it'll probably be at the June 23rd, just to give us a little bit more time for that input.
And Becky knows this has been a discussion for a long time, trying to figure out how we could get something like this. And, we've been banging our head against the wall trying to figure out ways to do it. And it's kind of one of those things where we're ready, we just need to make a move on this and pursue it.
And the nice thing about the waiver, if they don't like it, you don't
Goes
fill out
away.
the waiver again.
Gotcha. You
But
have to do it each year.
Right, it gives us the ability to have that flexibility, and because we fill out the waiver, let's pretend that after 6 months of this, they said, we just need to have a regular schedule, it's too confusing for the kids. As long as we're meeting the daily minute requirement in that week, there's some flexibility.
So does the waiver have to get approved?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, my only thought is as you're getting input, everyone may be gearing up to start this in August and the waiver's not approved till November. I don't know.
If we do all of the steps typically from CDE, there's not like, well, no. If we do all the steps and do what we're supposed to do, it will be a
Ready
slam dunk.
for the
But
23rd.
We have to do
The
the
steps.
steps.
Right, okay.
So that's
We meet the criteria for having such a waiver. You know, it's intended to provide opportunity for staff to
Great.
work on these things, and so it really, yeah, it's going through the process.
Easy to
So
justify.
couldn't we then on the 23rd, we could approve it pending approval of the waiver? So if the waiver goes through, it's approved and ready to roll.
we just have to make sure that that's possible. So we haven't, me personally, I
Right.
have not looked into it enough.
Yeah.
I know that Connie and Gary have, but I need to start digging in there a little bit more to make
Mhm.
sure that from our end, the district end, correct, that we are doing what we need to do.
Right.
So I need to do a little bit more of that digging, and making sure that all of the proverbial ducks are in a row.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
So.
The formality.
And again, this is, what I appreciate about this waiver process is that we have to show that the minutes are being made up in that week.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can do that. So
Mhm.
I think there's a really clean way to build a calendar so that families aren't guessing. Is
Right.
today a short week?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it not a
Well, and
short-
especially if it's the back end of the day, they're gonna get there and you'll remind them, well, today you get to go home at 1 or whatever. But today you get to stay a little longer. So it's not like you're telling, the front end of the day is changing, because that would be hard. Yeah, so that seems reasonable on the family side, but, okay. Any other questions before we move on to the Local Control Accountability Plan 2022-23 update?
So this is the first read of the LCAP. You won't see any budget numbers in there yet. The May revise is going to get published tomorrow. So that's a very exciting day in the office because we have been anticipating, thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
have been anticipating what the governor will do with the budget. And then after it is published tomorrow, Wendy is going to go to the meeting about the publication of the budget. That's when we then scratch our heads and figure out or guess what will actually stay, what will actually go. It's a complete guessing game until we get to June, which is the time you need to approve the LCAP. So this is our first read. What you'll see right now is that our goals are completely aligned in the district. Every site plan has goal 1, which is to increase college and career readiness. You've heard through the sites how that happens at each site and how we get to that end game, because the only school that has a college and career indicator is the high school. So it really takes all of us, starting from Redwood all the way through to get there. So what you'll see in the LCAP, the big major changes on college and career readiness is the Cal Poly Humboldt edition of TRIO. That's a big deal for us. We are excited to have that program partner with our AVID classes. You saw the thank you cards last month from the AVID students. We are now including our 8th grade AVID students with this. So what I'm hoping that we will see over the next several years is that you're going to see more targeted college trips for our kids. Our goal with the college and career, the A to G block grant, we met with the counselors. We are hoping to have trips where every 8th grader is going to go to these sites. Every 9th grader is going to go to these sites, every 10th grader, and really schedule out 4 or 5 different field trips, because we know we can't take 130 kids to Cal Poly Humboldt all at the same time. So we're going to be doing those planning stages, accessing that block grant. What I'm hoping you'll see over the next 4 years is a real huge push to get kids on campuses for our students in Fort Bragg. Considering that we are 81% socioeconomically disadvantaged, getting kids on a bus, getting them out of the zip code, going on a college campus and saying, this could be you, is incredibly profound. So you'll be looking at that over the next 2 years. We are in year 2 of this LCAP cycle. The following year will be year 3 of the LCAP cycle. There aren't major changes in it because we are in year 2. Once we get done with year 3, there'll be a new LCAP template, and we'll start it differently again. So the big changes in this LCAP for year 2 is TRIO on college and career readiness, on increasing academic student achievement. We did make sure that Kelly Smith was in there and for the next 2 years, which is why I presented you with a 2-year professional development plan. The LLI intervention program is still in there to get us to our 3rd LCAP year. We're going to be taking a continued hard look at data, looking at Tier 2 instruction, Tier 3 instruction, and all those learning targets. So you'll see that in the student achievement goal. And the last goal is school culture. We added Jimmy in. He was not there last year. Jimmy Crudison with cultural competency. We will be looking at the SEL program and making sure that that gets implemented with fidelity. Jimmy was the big addition for culture. We are going to have to really consider some PBIS supports potentially in the next coming years. So that's in the LCAP as well. But those are the major additions. For the most part, it should read very much like year 1. You'll see in the analysis that there weren't major changes. We're plugging along.
Okay. And so this one will have to go for public hearing on the 16th?
Yes, so on June 16th, after Wendy gets to go to the fun meeting tomorrow and learn about the budget, she and I will sit down. She's going to do her magic, and then she and I will sit down and she'll
populate the numbers.
She'll populate the numbers and do all the fun stuff and tell me where all the major changes are, if any. We anticipate, what I've noticed in this budget year is that there is much stronger talk about one-time monies, about categorical monies, which we're not supposed to go back to categoricals, right? Because we are LCFF funded. But what everybody is noticing is that it feels like it's going back to categorical funding because there is such a surplus. So I go back to if it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck. We're looking at some of these categorical things. I'm a little nervous about this budget only because the state keeps talking about one-time monies with strings. Every superintendent is worried about it because it's not one-time money with strings, it's one-time money with a plan. And so it's labor intensive. And I will tell you as a superintendent, I think we need to focus on our children and not necessarily the plan. I'm hoping that the legislature gives us money so that we can just do the work that we need to do. So after the meeting tomorrow, we will have a better idea of what the governor's budget will look like. Capital advisors will definitely give us something that will have kind of a snapshot. CSBA will have something out to us within 24 hours of a snapshot. Wendy will know by
And I've signed up for both of those also, so I'll go to 3 different things.
You look so excited.
Well, the funny
could be
thing
with her
is,
people.
she does this every year. She goes to 3 different things,
Yeah.
and my question is always, do they all match? Are they
Yeah.
all saying the same thing?
Pretty much.
So we're pretty fortunate. Wendy is a masterful CBO. She will get this down to a science and put things where they absolutely need to be so we get the biggest bang for our buck. So tomorrow we'll be telling, and then the next part of this will be how does this actually end in June? What will make it through the arm wrestling stages of our legislature? Because this is an election year, I anticipate that the arm wrestling will be a little more intense. So there are many legislatures who are up for election this year. So I anticipate we're going to see politicking at its finest. We won't know what we're going to get till the end. So on June 16th, we are required to hold our public hearing. Wendy and I will give you and present to you an LCAP to the best of our ability with the information that we have in the moment. The hard part is the budget may not be completely finalized. You are still required to pass an LCAP, approve an LCAP by June 30th. So what's our process? Hope and pray that Wendy gets 3 of the same messages and that the majority of those messages stay the same. We go to June 16th, We present you an LCAP with all the budget numbers in it. We talk about any changes that may have occurred. We try and give you a first read in May so that the public, our LCAP is completely transparent and people see what we're thinking, so that it's not, well, here's a hearing, here's the approval, bye-bye. So I appreciate what we do in our district about being transparent to our stakeholders. So on June 16th, you'll have the LCAP in its most final version. We have the public hearing. If for some reason there are changes in the budget before we get to June 23rd, we will disclose those again, because we can't just leave something in the LCAP that's completely wrong because it changed after the public hearing. But we will publicly disclose it again, and then you'll vote on the LCAP on June 23rd. What you will see on June 16th is Wendy will be providing you the public disclosures for the increases that we have bargained with our with our labor groups. So she'll present that to you as well, and then we'll get to see that 3-year falling off the cliff projection. And we will have all the reasons for you on how we will survive it. So our budget and our LCAP will ultimately need to be approved by MCOE. Wendy works closely with the business department to make sure that they will bless our plan and that everything that we've promised that we're going to do is doable. So that's the process. We go to June 16th, public hearing with a pretty darn solid LCAP with what we have at the moment. June 23rd, it comes up for approval, pending any changes versus the legislature. And then we don't convene again until August. And there have been years where the budget wasn't fully complete until after the LCAP was approved, and then we scramble in August to fix it, and then September you go into closing the books, October we move into first interim, all that good stuff.
Okay, that's pretty thorough. Anyone have any clarifying questions? This is just information and discussion. Yeah, we've done this before. So if there are no other questions, we have one last item on information and discussion, which is possible Series B bond sale.
So in talking with our bond advisor over the last few weeks, I was wondering when are we going to do this, when are we going to do this, when are we going to do this, and he called me back and said he was trying to wait for things to settle down a little. I said, you really think that's going to happen anytime soon? No. So we have a tentative schedule for it. This will be coming to you on June 16th for a resolution to approve the sale. I'll try to get you more details about it. There are a whole bunch of things that have to happen between now and then, but they are aware of the agenda deadline for some of the documents that have to be approved by the board to move forward with this. Based on their timeline, the sale would probably close on about July 28th, which is a comfortable timeline for the construction. They will be starting to plow through some pretty good numbers here now that they're moving dirt. So they were a little nervous going out much farther than that. Like we could have pushed it off and done the board approval and things in August, but that would have put it out to September, and Don was a little nervous about waiting that long. So just giving you a heads up and giving the public a heads up that we will probably be putting this on for action in June.
Okay, and so this is for the Redwood Elementary Project 2.
Yes.
The 2000, they consider it the 2020B series.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the second part of it that we knew was coming.
Yeah, I mean, it had always been on the calendar, their calendar for some time this year, but like I said, they were kind of waiting to see if the world would settle down, and it's not.
It's not.
Doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
And just a reminder for our stakeholders that we passed the bond, and we're hugely appreciative of the bond being passed so that we can improve our facilities. The board had voted to have that bond sale happen over the course of 3 sales so that it wouldn't hit taxpayers all in one bill. So the first sale happened, and that's why property taxes increased this last go around, because that was recognizing that first sale. So just to let folks know, the second sale, should it happen in June, it's going to be realized on the December taxes again. And the third sale will be at our full level, and that'll happen probably in another year or two.
I
So 25?
think they were, no, I don't think it's 25. I think it's, might be 24.
So I'm just putting that out there so that when folks ask you about it, that everyone understands this is the why. We did not do this to our community all in one fair swoop.
Because that was an option.
It was an
Yeah,
option.
which is difficult, but it's, in the end, I mean, it's just spacing it out, it's still a nut. I mean, that's the hard part, but how, I mean, we have no other way. I did see on social media, they wanted to know why we didn't use our lottery money to do this expansion. So people just don't understand the financing, how difficult it is. We can't improve without the community's assistance.
Well, and I have
So
to say
sad.
that if you ever want Wendy to do a budget workshop just for the community, people don't attend. People attend meetings when they're angry, to be quite honest with you. And we've been very fortunate in our district that people have been so respectful and so kind to us. What's difficult is everyone has an opinion of the budget that they believe to be true. And I typically laugh at the lottery comment because our lottery monies are not that much. We use our restricted lottery for textbooks. Wendy came into my office today and she said, what kind of adoptions are coming up? And I said, well, we've got a big science adoption coming up. And she said, well, how much do you think it's going to be? Like for K-5, for us, 350,000. And we don't have that much in our restricted lottery money. We have to hoard it every year to get to that
Save it.
point so we can get books.
Just books and.
I mean, so, you know, it's difficult. We have unrestricted lottery that's different, but just to put it in perspective, we have a $24 million budget. Yay us. Okay, the bond project is a $25 million project.
Right.
So there aren't enough lottery dollars for the next 10 years to get this done. So
Right.
that's the hard part. And folks, everybody's tight. Everybody's pinched tight right now. I mean, look at gas, look at
Yeah.
bread, look at milk. We're all pinched tight. So we know it's tough. We have a big logging community. What are our logging truck drivers doing? Diesel's worse than gas. So we recognize that this is what's happening in our community. The unfortunate reality is that we don't have many choices either. So
Is he worried about being able to sell bonds in this market?
Not being worried about selling them, about what the interest rate's going to be on them for us.
Mm-hmm.
Municipal bonds are generally pretty attractive most of the time, but if investors perceive that they can do better other places, then it makes us have to be more competitive, and so the cost goes up for us. But right now, I'm not seeing that as the problem because the market is not, is just all over the map. So so having, I think they'll be very attractive as a stable investment for people. And that last sale is in 2025.
okay.
2025, yeah. So that's maybe a good breathing time, but difficult. Okay, so I think that's the discussion because it's getting late. So I think that moves us on to board reports. Does anyone want to briefly do a shout out? Some good stuff?
I had some things, but it's pretty late.
So if you want to go beyond 10 o'clock, someone needs to make a motion.
I think it's 10:30 actually. I think that
Oh, okay. I thought it
yeah,
was 10.
we always think it's 10 because we want it to be 10, but I think it really is 10:30.
9:15.
Yeah, you were thinking 9:15. No. So I'll just briefly say that the board chat, we're trying to do two different times for 30 minutes each. So next month, moving forward, we'll do an 8:45 to 9:15 and 3:30 to 4. We had no one attend today, but we want to keep providing opportunity, and especially the after-school time. We thought maybe it would be easier for staff or parents.
The
So-
difficulty next month is that both board chats will happen after school is out.
Oh, right.
So and hey, if we get people
But
right on.
You know what? But still, there's still people. They're still in town. They could
That's right.
virtually.
And
It's
we have summer
virtual.
school.
It's only virtual.
Right.
So yeah, that's true. But yeah, we may have a different group of people because they might be more available. I just want to thank the Dana Gray for hosting their El Dia del Niño, the Day of the Child. I popped in there I don't remember what day it was, but that was a lot of good energy, and the kids enjoyed the physical stuff along with the art tables. So they were having fun with tug of war and whatnot. And anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
I went to Dana Gray Art in the school. Kids are having a lot of fun. Tug of war was interesting. Hadn't seen one of those in a while. Except they just missed the mud pit in the middle, but anyway.
We did not have a mud pit in the middle. I just want to say that out loud.
It's too dangerous.
And Scott and I went to do a tour of the middle school with Ms. Vieira. She did a great job. Saw a lot of different rooms, lots of energy, lots going on. Had a great lunch. Feel like things are going pretty well.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep. I went to Alt Ed and also Dana Gray. I'm going to revisit Dana Gray because Mr. Kale forgot that was the day they started testing. So it wasn't, after I walked into a classroom, all the kids looked up from their computers. I quickly backed out and I'll be back another day. And then the Mecca, the job fair that we're putting on, just want to say it again, tomorrow at the college, and also the registration fiesta. It all starts at 2 o'clock, and there are free burritos starting 5 to 7. So
very good. Okay.
I'll just say it's nice. I did do several things, which I haven't been able to do in a while. But it's just nice to have things going on campus. So
and seeing
that
kids.
feels good, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the Safe and Sober is having their dine-out dinner at David's. But yeah, I know there are other board members that will be going to sites to visit before the end of the year, so that will continue. We'll try to do the instructional rounds next year, get on calendar when we know they're doing that work, because that's a nice time to visit.
When's David's?
Tomorrow at 4 to 7. So we're going to go to the next advanced planning, but it is getting really late, so I don't know if we want to save that for our agenda setting, which is I think June 6th. It's with Scott, so you can always email Superintendent Walker if you have something that you want to talk about before the end of the school year. And there's a bunch of housekeeping reminders, but we can all, I think all of this is attended by the board because they're ceremonies and open houses. So we don't really have to coordinate that this evening, but we do have to go into closed session briefly. So I don't know, do we? It's been a while. So we close out? We probably don't. We just say we're going to reconvene into closed session at 10:01, and then I'll end up closing the meeting out when we're done.
So here's a point of reference, because we haven't
Yes.
done this in a while.
Yeah.
Do we adjourn the open session, though?
No, because we end up having to report, if we have to report out at the end, that's why it's always kind of, but we won't have the camera. So if there's anything for us to report out after closed, that happens in open, so we don't want to close open now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's a little funny, especially at this hour. So I don't think we'll be very long, but we just need to reconvene for a few minutes at 10:02. Okay? Very good.